Welcome to the Occult Rejects. This episode, we got a very, very special guest and I guess a special show and topic for you. But before we get to the guest, I do want to introduce you to the other rejects that are joining us tonight. Tonight, I'm going to start with Heidi to the left of me. Heidi, let everybody know what your deal is and what's up and where they can find all your amazing work, please.
Awesome. I am Heidi Love of the Unfiltered Rise. I'm everywhere podcasts are served. My little forte is Mormons because I used to be one, and also JFK because I'm a weirdo. I don't know. Anything that has to do with that, right? And so find me there and at unfilteredrisepodcast.com. Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Listen, no, thank you. And maybe new listeners that might be coming across the show for the first time, definitely go check out her Mormon Mafia series on here. That is on fire. Great work, especially JJ. You know, he's involved in it too. Some great stuff. Definitely check it out. And JJ, you're next. What's up, sir? Let everybody know what your deal is.
Nick, greetings, sir. Appreciate the invite as always. I enjoy the Occult Rejects roundtable discussions we have here, but tonight, specifically because I, ever since I encountered a Kentucky vampire cult years ago, that I've long been interested in these subjects. So, JJ Vance, not the vice president, host of Operation GCD. Definitely looking forward to the conversation. Julia and Heidi, as always, great to join y'all. And Celeste, great to meet you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, sir. Yeah. And when I had asked her to come on, I was like, I have to ask him to come on because I'm going to be honest. I really didn't entertain vampire cults too much until you had me on and we talked about it. I was like, yo, this is really interesting.
Yeah.
I got to get my man on for this. So thank you. Like I had told you, I think I said you probably inspired this somehow. So
nice.
I appreciate it. And next, last but not least, Cosmic Peach. Julia, what up? What's going on?
What's up, Nick? I'm excited to be here. This is going to be a good one. I can already tell by the guest bangs. I was just commenting on before we got started. She's fabulous. But yeah, no, I have Cosmic Peach podcast. If you haven't found me already, you never will. Honorary Occult Reject for the night, though. Excited to be here.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Always a pleasure to have you. And finally, to the guest, Celeste Mott, writer, Wiccan, witch, rat mom, all sorts of things. Please let everybody know, I guess, what your deal is, because I do know you have social media, which I did include that for people. But if you want to let people know, I guess, maybe what your deal is and where they can find your stuff. And I guess after that, we'll get into how you got involved in the Anne Rice vampire cult.
Oh, what a story it is. Yeah, so my name's Celeste Mott. I've been a full-time professional witch as my only source of income for about 7-8 years, and been sort of doing occult work for about 20 years. And yeah, also mother of rats. I have several rats that I caretake. And I'm a writer. I went to school for poetry and am currently working on a book about what I went viral for unexpectedly the last week. So I'm excited about all of that. You can find my spiritual work, and also if you're listening to this and you haven't encountered my weird saga of vampires, I'm making videos about it on my Instagram and on my TikTok. So I'm Celeste Mott, M-O-T-T, over on Instagram, and I'm Celeste Moth, like the flying thing, over on TikTok.
That is great. I'll have to add you over on TikTok. Didn't know you were over there.
Yeah.
So, I guess, I guess maybe if you can, maybe even give us an idea of like where you were in your life when this even, like, how did you even come about to get into it? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. So I joined this the whole thing started online, and those of you who've seen the videos will kind of know the genesis of the story. And the internet of 2003 was not the internet of 2025. It was different in many, many ways. So I was in high school at the time. I think I was 15. I might have been 16 just, but I was a kid, living with my mom in Australia, which is where I grew up. And, I just was not having a great time. I was a weird little kid in a very, very boring suburban beachfront kind of existence. I was a little goth kid, and into weird music and listened to a lot of like David Bowie and The Cure and yeah, you know, jamming. Reading a lot of Anne Rice, reading a lot of other horror novels, and very into the paranormal and the occult. Even then, I've been into that since I was a teeny tiny little kid, reading books about witches and ghosts and stuff. And I just didn't really have a huge community around me of people in real life. I had friends, you know, like there are a couple of people in the TikTok comments who were like, "Did you ever think of making a friend?" I was like, "I had friends. Like, come on now." I wasn't a complete loser, but you know, I didn't have a lot of people in real life that I was able to vibe with about these bigger things that I was into. And so, like a lot of people my age, even older, you know, in that time on the internet, I went online and I looked for people who had similar interests. I was very motivated, even at a young age, even in my teens, you know, to find something more. I had a real sense that there was something that existed outside of just paying your bills and working a shitty job and, you know, doing your algebra homework. I had some supernatural and paranormal experiences and some spiritual experiences. And so I took to, you know, ask Jeeves, I guess. This was like pre everybody using Google. So I asked Jeeves, you know, vampires real? Vampires real online? You know, like show me what you got. And came across all sorts of strange and wonderful websites that existed again back in the old days of the internet. But one of the websites I came across was this internet forum that claimed to be run by Anne Rice's vampires, which is ludicrous on first blush. But, you know, the saga continues.
I love it.
So this is like a real cult that's still, I mean, they still have, it's still operating. And
That's a great question. What I can say is this: the people who ran this group definitely do still have an online presence. And the presence that they have online now, you know, it's a URL that anybody can type in and anyone can like go to this little back end site, but you can't see anything. They have a form that you can fill out and you can say, you know, are you a current member? Were you a former member? Are you a total new person to this whole thing? And you can request to join, and then they will or will not give you the login for the back end of their site. So it operates, I assume, in some sense. I have not been part of it since I guess they kicked me out in 2011. The last contact I had with any of these people was 2014, and it did not go well. So I don't know how active it is behind the scenes, but yeah, it's still there.
Wow.
did they give names like my name is this, my name is that, like specific vampires from like the
Vampire
novels?
names?
Yeah. So the kind of the setup of the whole group, and this was part of what, when I first found it, made me think, like, oh, this is a bunch of bullshit, you know, like, I don't know. I'm assuming we can swear on the Occult Rejects.
Yeah.
I'm going to assume cursing is fine.
Oh, you haven't heard Julia yet.
You know, sometimes I do
Right.
podcasts. They're like, no, I'm like, I'm from Australia. There's nothing I can do about that. But yeah, so most internet forums, fandom stuff, you know, Anne Rice or whatever fandom that you were looking at that existed at the time, and still, if you sign up, you're signing up either as yourself, or you're signing up and saying, hey, you know, I would love to join your like fun little role-playing game. I would like to play the role of Lestat. Here's my audition. And then everybody kind of knows, all right, we're all writing collaboratively. It's a role play. In real life, I'm Celeste, but I'm going to be like Lestat on the internet. This group was very different. You were not allowed to audition to play a role. You were not allowed to go on there and be like, I am Nosferatu and I'm here to drink a beer with Lestat in the bar. You had to just be you. But the moderators of the forum were the vampires. So we had a Lestat, we had a, you know, Armand, we had a Louis, we had a Marius, and those people never revealed their real names. They were in character all the time. And the part that really turned it into kind of a cult-like environment, and this went on, you know, for me, 11 years, I think I was involved. Other people were involved for much, much longer. But the mask never dropped at any point. And they really created this environment where they were insisting, no, we are the immortal vampires. Like, in one way or another, we are who we claim to be. And if you don't believe it, you know, we're going to make your life very difficult. Like, either you're just going to get the boot and you're out of the club, or we're going to belittle you and bully you and harass you until you come to the party. And there was a lot of like manipulation that went into convincing us that this was the truth.
It's been like ex-Scientologists.
Right.
Mhm.
I don't know if you
when
know
did you
about.
find this?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Heidi.
Oh, I was just going to say, I didn't know if you knew about some of the other ones. I actually interviewed an ex-vampire already. He was from the Netherlands.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he was in a guy's one. It was this guy, he's a famous guy, and they do like shows, and you can go to the show, and like they have like raves and stuff like that. Like back about the same time frame. I can't remember the guy's name that he was a part of.
Is this the Sanguinarian group? It's not
he
Father
had
Sebastian, is it?
I think it might be Father Sebastian.
I know
Yep.
those. Well, I know those folks a little bit.
Yeah, he sent me a
Okay.
whole bunch of literature. It was super interesting. He sent me like the Temple of the Vampire books and stuff, and I read a whole bunch of it before. So fascinating to hear too. Like he was explaining about like the mental vampirism versus physical. Maybe
Yeah, energy stuff. And that's
Uh-huh.
the funny thing about the group I was in. Like, even though at first blush you look at it and you think, well, that's patently ridiculous. Of course, like this person on the internet forum is not a fictional vampire written by Anne Rice, God rest her soul. But there was a lot of intersection with the group that you just mentioned, you know, like what they would call like the real vampire community, the Sanguinarian community, the otherkin community, like all of these things kind of coalescing in a oddly frightening way.
No. Wow.
So Celeste, it sounds like. No, go ahead. I thought you were done, Heidi. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, so did you like get involved with the other ones? Do they all come together and like meet at certain times or?
I mean, not explicitly, I guess. I think like with any weird subculture, you know, in the same way as the goth subculture intersects with the vampire subculture oftentimes, just because you got some shared interests. There were definitely individual members of the group I was in, and possibly also moderators that did intersect with the Sanguinarian community. It's a little convoluted, but very much toward the end of my involvement with the group, the people involved in running the group I was in actually founded a like vampires only Facebook that they called Get Fanged. And the whole Get
Nice.
Fanged group was strictly for Sanguinarians. So there was overlap, but I never met anybody that I know to be a moderator who was like at any of these events. I've gone to the events though. Like sometimes I'll go to an Endless Night ball in New Orleans. I have my own thoughts on a lot of those people, so I like to keep myself gently on the outside looking in. But yeah, I think there was probably a lot more overlap than I even realize at this point.
Wow. Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So Celeste, you were saying, well, now I have a new question also to add on there. I appreciate that, Heidi. What's the Sanguinarian? What is this?
So the Sanguinarian community, and again, being not myself a part of that community, I can only speak as a kind of fringe outsider. So if I F anything up and somebody watches this, don't come for me. Oh my gosh. But my understanding is that the Sanguinarian community is a vampire-based subculture where the participants do drink human blood. They believe in some sense that they are vampires, or that they are and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's like it's an energy exchange, right? That's the purpose. So we're not talking like, you know, filling up an 8-pint glass and downing it, but some of them will
blood bags.
Yeah, or you know, you'll have a donor, and someone, you know, you'll have your donor who does a little bit of blood letting. Yeah, they have a donor.
Yeah, he said it's all like he was one.
They feed on each other.
Yeah, and it has to be like all checked out and like all
They have contracts.
and
Yeah,
it's contract. Yeah.
Yeah.
He said that.
It's because in a way it kind of overlaps again. It is not necessarily the kink scene, but it intersects with the kink scene. So you have a lot of that same.
Yeah,
Interesting.
I can even say that's like, you know, sometimes wonder if that's why you get that kind of even within, like I saw that with the OTO, how I could see how it does kind of connect to the kink scene in a way, and I think that's how you get some more weirder ones showing up.
Yeah, I'm not into kink shaming or anything like that, but I mean, it's the thought of it to me is just like, you have to wonder if there's not a bit of like mental illness involved when you take it to
A
that
bit.
point.
I think for a lot
You
of people
know?
there is. I mean, when you think about just the prevalence of mental illness generally, I mean, so many of us are not necessarily entirely well for various reasons. And there's a lot of trauma that brings people into communities like that. I mean, even in the goth community, there's a lot of trauma at play because you're an outsider. You've been an outsider your whole life. You're not fitting into the mainstream. I think the same is true of the wider occult community. And very sadly, you know, sometimes it's mild mental illness where you just have not a great childhood and maybe you struggle with some stuff. And other times it's very severely unchecked mental illness. And that is its own problem. But yeah, you're right.
Like-
you know,
Yeah, like drinking blood and starting a cult. Hey, I wouldn't mind starting a cult if it was like fake vampirism. I'm down with that. Like I could almost see myself getting involved with fake vampirism cults because I grew up in the generation where it was like Twilight and you know, it was very much kind of sensationalized, and I would have found myself like wanting to be a part of that stuff. Sure.
Well,
But
that's
I
exactly what I was
mean,
going to ask Celeste.
oh yeah, go ahead, JJ.
Well, no, that's a great point. That's exactly what I was going to ask Celeste. Was the impact of these eras of film and whatnot? It sounds like you joined this forum around the time of the turn of the millennium, right? 99.
yeah,
2000,
I think I probably signed up around 2003. So right about then. Yeah.
Okay, so you saw the full scope of some of these films, like Julia just pointed out. Like, did that impact the this community at all? Like all these films?
I mean, I think like the vampire boom that happened in the early 2000s, like that's what it felt like to me. Much like we kind of had a witchcraft boom a little bit in like 2020 because everybody was stuck in their houses, and so witch talk became huge, you know, on TikTok. I think the early 2000s had a little vampire boom for whatever reason. I think Twilight was a big part of that for sure.
Sounds like Julia was enjoying that, huh?
Dude, I would have joined it in a second back in 7th grade.
Yeah, because it's appealing. Like there's something very universally appealing about the vampire as an archetype. Like it, you know, vampires, if we don't count like Nosferatu, which is a whole nother matter, but you know, they're sexy and they're eternally young and they're powerful. And you know, if you're especially in the world of Anne Rice, and Twilight, honestly, but you know, if you're a vampire, you don't ever see like a poor homeless vampire. You don't ever see like a vampire that's like old and decrepit in this new media incarnation. What you see is like young and beautiful and intelligent and educated and philosophical and rich.
Yeah.
And who doesn't, if you're a sad little goth kid with no friends, who doesn't sit in your bedroom thinking like, damn, my life kind of sucks. It'd be really cool if a vampire just like, whoop, swooped in.
And there
like
was some
Brad Pitt, literally interview.
That's what I was gonna say. There were some big cultural films, cultural impact films, right? What was the
Hell
Interview
yeah.
with the Vampire?
Yeah, the Interview with the Vampire film.
Nice.
Blade.
Also, like the Underworld
I love
films.
Blade.
Underworld's amazing. I thought
Yeah.
the first few were good. I thought
They were, yeah. The first one I liked. Second one was all right. After that, let's not talk about it.
I mean, going all the way back to the beginning of time, there are mentions of vampires. I actually just covered this in a separate episode on another show, and they even say like the very first wife of Adam, her name was Lilith.
Yeah,
that she was even vampiric, kind of like an immortal being who sustained off of the life of other people or something like that. And I mean, it goes all the way back to literally the beginning of time, so there is an obsession with it, but I also think that the obsession comes from there's a little bit of truth in it, that there are beings out there. They were worshipped in the old days as like these gods of old. And hey, somebody said you and me, goth nightclub, vampire cult. I'm down. I would do it.
Yeah, if we're gonna have a goth
I would
club.
do it. Yeah, but see, I would be a ginger goth and they're exiled, so nobody wants me at the party.
Oh, everybody loves a ginger goth. Don't underestimate it.
Everybody loves gingers. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, but yeah, there's like a sexiness to the vampire thing. you never see like a crack-headed,
Yeah.
vampire that's like not very resourceful. It's always my mom watched a show when I was growing up. It was called Dark Shadows.
Yeah.
I
I know
don't know
Dark
if you're
Shadows.
familiar with that. But I was obsessed with it. And then Tim Burton did with Johnny Depp. He made Johnny Depp Barnabas Collins,
Mhm.
and
Yep.
I think that movie is incredible. I love it. But even that show in itself, I would have joined a Dark Shadows cult. I definitely
yeah.
would have. I loved it. Loved it.
So did they have the literature for you there, just like I was explaining? Like he had books on books on book. Like there was so many books
Oh
of
yeah,
this
with that
Temple of the
group.
Vampire and stuff.
And I
Yeah.
think it's because like if and I got to go back now and watch the episode because that's so like listen to the episode. That sounds fascinating. But
Sure.
if it's the same group that I'm thinking of, parts of that Sanguinarian community and like the real vampire community, it does kind of cross into almost being a religion or like a, I mean, not like a formal religion, but they have, just like Thelema does, they have holy books, they have like tenets, right? They have rituals. Our group was not so much like that. It was a lot more chaotic and freeform. I mean, if we had like a holy book, it was Anne Rice's books. And one thing that did happen, which was a little weird, and with time and age and maturity, I realized that it's not as like spooky and inexplicable as I thought it was when I was 16. But they were able to get a bunch of us advanced reader copies of some of Anne's books before they were released, which at the time, in the early 2000s seemed really weird. We were like, wow, how did this happen? And there was this whole kind of magical element to it where Lestat on the forum had said, I'm going to get some of you guys advanced copies of the book before it's been published, and there's going to be little clues and synchronicities and secrets hidden in there to do with the forum and to do with you guys, and some of you are going to be in the book, it like under different names. And so we were all kind of going through the book trying to figure it out. So yeah, no structured tenets, or laws, aside from, I guess, the great law, which was you have to believe, and if you don't believe, you're going to be on the outs.
Well, I know that vampire novels are kind of synonymous with like romance novels, but just kind of like that has like the vampire element, kind of like Twilight. But I know several serial killers who were inspired by romance novels. I mean, there is a serious obsession with it. Did they ever ask you, like, extort you for money or anything like that? Like, you can get this copy if you pay X dollars or anything?
Nothing super explicit. Somebody on TikTok asked me this as well, and I think it's because when you talk about cults, oftentimes people are like, well, where's the financial incentive? Because that is sort of typical, as the cult leader makes a lot of money. You look at Keith Raniere from NXIVM, or you look at like any of these assholes, they wind up rich as kings. There were attempts made to monetize the group I was in on and off, mostly through like subscriptions to special like forums or access to special archives. They had this whole very strange period of time where they ran a kind of sister website that was supposed to be a paranormal investigation group called the Talamasca. That's a big thing in Anne Rice's books. And they were like, oh, you can join up and join the Talamasca and research the paranormal, but you're going to have to pay, $29.99 a month or whatever it is. But none of that really took off. And I think a big part of the reason that it didn't is most of us on this site were young, like either actual minors, like 13, 14, 15, or just in early college, still living with our parents. Like no one had very deep pockets. So the monetization didn't go anywhere for them. But I think for them, it was all about the attention and the power and the control.
Did they ever show their faces?
Nope.
Never.
Not to my knowledge. I mean, and this is the other weird thing though. And I've been down the rabbit hole for the past week since, I didn't intend to start telling this story on TikTok. I was recovering from a sinus infection and I was looking at my TikTok account and I was like, man, I haven't had a lot of engagement recently, like just yapping on the internet. What if I just like what if I just tell this cult story and see what happens? And then, I'm at collectively almost 2 million views of all the videos since then, which is
Meant to be.
bananas.
Nice.
Oh wow.
It kind of slowed down on TikTok, but then on Instagram Reels it went bananas. But yeah, like this idea of like, did they or did they not show their faces? I've been back in my archives, like archived a lot of material back in the day while I was part of this group. I saved chat logs, I saved AOL Instant Messenger logs. I have like,
Oh yeah, you
and
can see like on your Instagram. You even
I've shared a little bit
Yeah,
here
you
and
do
then, yeah, screenshots of like what the website used to look like and
Yeah,
everything. So I was ruthless. I was known for it at the time, and it made them very uncomfortable, and probably continues to make them very uncomfortable. But
you know what you could probably do nowadays? I'm just saying, if you ever wanted to, like, oh, I wish I could go back, you could probably use the Wayback Machine and possibly find some of them.
There's some stuff there. I looked the other day.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice. Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, that because the forum was password protected and you had to have an account to really see anything, you can't find anything much like with regard to that. But you can see their old websites and stuff. It's bananas. But regarding their faces, there was so many layers of like bullshit and subterfuge and obfuscation. And so there was never a moment when like the person playing Lestat, who we thought was Lestat, there was never a moment where Lestat like turned the webcam on and was like, hey, MTV, welcome to my crib. But there were members, like regular people like me, right, who I became friends with over the years, very close, stayed in these people's houses, traveled with them, who in retrospect very likely were involved in some way. And over the past week, I've been talking to a lot of other members from the time, and we've been exchanging notes and putting the puzzle pieces together. And something else, this is an exclusive scoop for the Occult Rejects, because I wasn't sure if I was going to talk about this publicly, and I may not on TikTok. But one of the ladies who probably started the whole cult, that's the working theory. She was an older woman. She almost certainly founded the whole thing. She never admitted to it, but we've all been able to, connect the dots. She actually died like 7 days before I started making my videos. And I found that out yesterday. I found her obituary and I was like,
oh,
ooh.
dang. So she never saw your stuff?
Mm-mm.
No.
Maybe that let you be free to do it. You know what I mean?
Did feel like kind of a spiritual, strange little like crossing over, this lady left this mortal coil and somehow the truth was set free. But that was weird. So I guess in theory, I have seen one of their faces just in a 20-minute long memorial video, which was very surreal.
Did she look notable?
She
or
looked
just
like a little old lady. She looked
really?
like a 75-year-old woman. Yeah.
I was gonna say, did she look like she was eternally 16 or anything?
Very unfortunately for all concerned, no,
Oh,
she did
man.
not. Yeah.
Sorry, Celeste, I'm going to jump in really quick. I
Hi.
apologize. I was a little bit late. I apologize to everybody. And thank you, Nick, obviously, for hosting me. So this is very interesting to me. You're saying like a woman sort of founded the cult. And I know that I've discussed this with Heidi. I've discussed this with JJ, and I'm sure Julia is familiar with it. But the idea in process, obviously, Marianne de Grimston, and like this kind of like mother, prophet, seer, revelator. And my friend Ashley, who's in the chat right now, she is studying another cult out of North Carolina called the Word of Faith, and their cult is also run by a woman, an older woman, and they call her the Mother Prophet. So I was just wondering if you called her any kind of particular titles other than her character.
We never knew her identity for sure. Like the only way I know that this woman almost certainly did found the whole thing is through like, almost 20 years of various different people sleuthing and putting the pieces together and, adding it all up over the years. So this woman never came clean as herself and said, yep, it's me, I'm behind it. She never stepped, out onto the stage and took any kind of responsibility that we would have given her a special name. She was just always behind that smoke screen. She played Louis, who's like the sad boy Anne Rice character.
Brad Pitt.
Yeah, Brad Pitt. She played Brad Pitt. But yeah, no. So in her case, no. But I will say that even she did exist on the forum in this group as herself. She did have a username and logged on and would tell people about, her gardening and her grandkids and her piano playing and stuff like that. She met some people in real life. I was not one of them, but she did go to meetups and so on, but only ever as herself. And the only way that she was special as herself was that that she claimed that she had met the vampires in real life, and that she was a big part of why so many people came to believe, because she was like, look, I'm at the time, a 60-year-old grandma. Why would I lie to you guys about any of this? Like, I'm an upstanding member of the community. I've worked the same university job for 40 years. I used to be an opera singer. I'm a very normal person, but I'm telling you that vampires are real because I've met one. And that was the only way that she was special. So she didn't get like a special title. No one gave her credit for running this whole operation. We really didn't find out until years later. But she did distinguish herself insofar as she was the special one who had actually had this face-to-face contact that all of us, desperately wanted.
Basically, it was like she's seen them, she's telling you they're real. But I mean, I'm just surprised that they didn't try to like say if you paid X number of dollars, you could get to meet one of them or something. Or like, I'm surprised they didn't try to like monetize that in some way. Like,
I mean, I
think one.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, JJ.
No, that's a great point. I was thinking the same thing. What was their end game? If they're not trying to monetize it, like what is their end game?
Well, they make a lot of money on these balls she's talking about. You have to dress a certain way. You have to have everything to the utmost, like big deal.
And and if they were in some way connected with that, which I don't know if they were or not. I mean, again, before anyone's lawyers descend upon me, I'm definitely not saying that my group were officially a part of that. But there may have been other income streams. But I think also any attempts they made to monetize just didn't work. I mean, their last ditch effort to monetize was around about 2010. And they started this like vampire Facebook thing. It was a pretty well made site. I wish I had screenshots of that, but I don't. I mean, it worked very well. They clearly had hired a web designer who really knew what they were doing, and they had a whole thing set up, and they were trying to position that and launch it as, this is the alternative vampires only Facebook, and we're going to be rich off that. And I think it just didn't go anywhere. I don't know if that's because so many people in the community, again, just like didn't really have the money and weren't that interested. But yeah, they didn't monetize it. I think what they were in it for, I mean, I have a couple of theories. Main theory is that these people were just not well. Especially this like older lady, who passed away recently. Not to speak ill of the dead, but I just don't think that you can possibly be a well human being if you spend 30 plus years of your life as a fully grown adult with children and grandchildren and a job and a life, lying to minors on the internet that you are a vampire or have met vampires. Something's not right in your head. You're not doing well.
Yeah.
So mental illness, possibly, but I think it was attention. I think it was control. I think being able to convince a huge group of people to believe something bananas has a lot of appeal for a certain type of person.
Sure.
So I think that was the payoff, really.
How many people do you like roundabouts were involved in the group when you were?
When I was a part of the group, there were about, I want to say 300 or 400 people like registered as part of the group.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's
for
bigger than I thought.
Yeah.
I mean, not
it
all of them
like 100 or something.
Yeah, not all of them were like regularly active. So we had definitely that many people who were there and observing or whatever. I would say in terms of like active participating members, probably closer to about 150. And then off that, there was an even smaller inner circle group, of which I was unfortunately part. And that was maybe like 30 people, 30, 35 people who were, going and meeting each other offline and going to meetup events and extremely invested in like the narrative. But yeah, pretty big group comparatively.
Did you just get rid of it with age, or you said they kicked you out, or
Oh yeah, they kicked me out.
what
I
did
would
you
love
do? Say, send me proof, and they were like, you know what, you're out of the group.
pretty much. Honestly, yeah. So I would love to say that I had just matured and become a more sensible person and walked away, but very sadly, no. They eroded my mental health over. I mean, other things were also eroding my mental health, in fairness. They're not completely responsible, but I was not doing well in my early 20s and my late teens. And I think for me, a lot of my peers who were in the same group were able to take things a little bit more lightly. And they were able to kind of participate. And yes, it was impacting them and changing the way they viewed the world. And they were invested, but they weren't quite as invested as I was. I was all in to a damaging degree. But I also really, really struggled to fully believe, even though I was all in, even though I really wanted it to be true. I really struggled with just like being like, okay, cool, yeah, this is all real. Let's move on with whatever's going on. And so I think the doubt and the constantly looking for answers, I was constantly, that's why I have files on my computer to this day with all the, evidence. I was always talking to people, asking questions, trying to find out the truth. I would have conversations with the vampires, the moderators, and say, look, it's been 10 years. You guys can just tell me what's really going on. Like, we don't have to do all this. If we're friends, we're friends. We've built a relationship over a decade. You can just be real with me. And they wouldn't. And so then I took matters into my own hands to try and discover the truth, whether they were going to tell me or not, which included tracking down IP addresses and talking to people that they didn't want me to talk to.
That'll get you kicked out every time.
Yes, it will. Yes, it will. And so that's it. And that's why they booted me. Ultimately, was just having conversations with the wrong people, asking too many questions. And I think from their perspective, not to be overly fair to a bunch of people who lied and manipulated minors for years, but from their perspective, I think it was like this, I was making trouble. I was not just swallowing what they had to tell me and sitting down quietly and dealing with it, and they didn't like that. So
yeah, no kidding.
Hey JJ, that sounds like the Mormons.
I was gonna say the exact same thing, Heidi. That sounds like the same damn experience.
Seriously,
Heidi and I
though.
both being former Mormons, I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
And I feel like
Don't
it's
ask
common
questions.
to a lot of those groups, right? Like but my roommate
Right.
actually is a former Mormon, so I've heard
Watch it. They're
a lot of
everywhere.
Mormon stuff. But also, Scientology, you've got the same thing. If you're out, you're out. That's it. You're a non-person. And they're going to tell all sorts of lies about you and turn other people against you. And this was much the same, just on a very smaller scale.
So
Well,
what are
I
they
have
hiding?
two
I know what the Mormons
say
are
about
hiding. I
that.
know what the
Oh.
Scientologists are hiding. What are they hiding? What are
That's
the
a great
vampires
question.
hiding?
I have theories.
There you go.
I'd rather be a part of the vampire cult than the Mormons. Just saying.
They're way
I would. Yeah, right. I'd much rather be part of a vampire cult. But I did have a question for you. Have you ever watched the show or the movie called Catfish?
Yeah.
Okay, so you know how, like in the movie Catfish, like the original Catfish story, he shows up and it's that one lady and she's playing like many roles. I mean, she's got like 20 Facebook accounts set up. She's got like cousins and brothers and like moms and all this stuff, and it's just one lady.
Yeah.
And she had convinced this guy had completely fallen in love with her, and showed up, and she even like brought him in her house and was still trying to keep the ruse up. So I mean, the thing is, when you start digging in and you start trying to find answers because you feel like something's fishy, they will at all costs try to keep the fantasy alive.
Oh yeah.
So they probably would have rather gotten rid of you than to just been like, hey, nobody's really a vampire here, we're busted. They're gonna go down to the last moment getting people to think they're really vampires than to just be like busted. You know what I mean?
100%. I remember watching Catfish for the first time. I can't remember when that came out, but it's got to have been sometime in the early 2000s, I think. And I remember watching it at the time and being like, this is the same. Like, I knew on some level, I was like, what I am involved in, it is gonna be this. And there was always already so much whispering behind the scenes between those of us who were participants of this, saying, you know, oh, do you think that so and so is real? Do you think that this person's really a plant? You know, is this a fake profile? Is that a fake profile? Like, we were highly suspicious the whole time. I found out years later, actually, like a couple of years ago, I reconnected with some people who were part of this group. And one of these women said to me, she was like, you know, you can tell me now, were you one of the vampires? I was like, bitch, no. Like, I mean, my life would have been so much easier if that had been the truth, you know? But that's the level of distrust and like weirdness that it created between all of us.
Yeah, no, for sure.
What are your
When did you-
theories? Not legally tendering any kind of aspect behind that.
Yeah, we got to cover our legal bases. My theories. So as I said, you know, yesterday was a weird day because I found this lady's obituary, and by adding certain things, I mean, there were pictures in this lady's like obit slideshow that I remember being posted to the forum. So I was like, oh, this is her. And then I ran it by a friend of mine who actually met this woman in real life. I said, just to confirm, is this, you know, I'm not going to say her name, but is this Bonnie? Fake name. Is this Bonnie from the forum who we all think probably played Louis? And my friend was like, oh, that's her. So I guess theory one is it really was just a bunch of Anne Rice superfans who were also not well in some way or had a void that they needed to fill. And they were filling that by being highly manipulative and sketchy on the internet. That's the first and probably most likely theory. But I do have a kind of secondary theory, which dovetails into the occult a little bit. You know, I'm a witch full time now. That's what I do as a job. And in that line of work, I've seen a lot of shit and gone down a lot of rabbit holes and done a lot of research and reading. And, you know, the concept of the egregore, right? Where, or like, you know, egregore, tulpa, thought form, it's got different names that people use. But the idea that like a concentrated amount of belief and focus and sometimes meditation or magical practice can create a being or a manifestation or like a thing that exists independently from the people who are putting that energy into it. There is a part of me that thinks that something like that was going on in this group, not by accident, but purposefully. And I say that because a lot of the people who were running this forum, I mean, Lestat especially, but some of the other moderators too, knew a lot about the occult. They were posting about Thelema. They were posting about egregores and tulpas, Tibetan Buddhism. And so that calls into question, like, was there some other purpose for all this beyond just like, tra-la-la-la-la, let's pretend to be vampires, you know?
I was going to ask earlier because I was wondering, like, sometimes just like, even if people just being manipulated and used, there might be an occultist there somewhere. And I was going to ask if they entertained the occult on this forum. I just didn't get to asking it. So I guess they did, and they were open about it.
Yeah, they were open about it. They were looking back, you know, I think teaching us in some ways. I mean, a lot of us were kids. I was a kid, and I definitely learned about a lot of these occult topics and was sort of guided through how to do further research and learn more by these people. Dreams were a huge part of what they did, like dreaming and dream work and lucid dreaming and dream walking each other and stuff like that. I first heard the term synchronicity on this forum and like read the works of Carl Jung because of the forum. So yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask the
would,
same
like,
thing
get in
actually
your
because
dreams?
go ahead, Julie.
Who's singing?
Oh, I said they would like get in your dreams. Is that what that means?
Oh yeah, that was a whole nother thing. And I mean, look, I am a full-time professional witch and I've experienced some weird shit, but I'm also a skeptic. Like, it's a weird line to draw, but I've kind of got Scully on one shoulder and Mulder on the other, you know? But there was some things that I can't really explain. There was some dream experiences. I've always been a lucid dreamer. I've always been a very vivid dreamer ever since I was a tiny little kid. But there were some things that happened while I was a part of this forum that were extremely strange. Waking up like with my body covered in bruises in places that it wouldn't have made sense for me to be like knocking myself around, you know? Yeah, weird stuff.
Wow.
That sounds pretty wild. Yeah, I was to piggyback on Nick's statement. I was curious too when you mentioned earlier, Julia, about the Lilith, the original vampire.
Mhm.
So Michael Aquino's wife, Lilith, when they first started the Temple of Set, she starts this thing called, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, Celeste, the Vampire Order or the Order of the Vampire.
Yeah, that
within
rings
the
a
Temple of
bell.
Set.
Yeah.
So there's some sort of mash together of Thelema, like you were saying, and some sort of vampire business.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God! Why
Well,
does
it's,
that?
and
not
it's like
surprise me?
you see that a lot, I think. Pardon me, I'm still getting over this cold. You see that a lot, I think, with, for whatever reason, Thelema just seems to like slot very nicely into these like other belief systems, and it kind of, but you know, you see that with the Tifoni in OTO, right? Like that's H.P. Lovecraft mythology, but it's blended with Thelema. And so, yeah, I don't know whether there was something purposeful going on behind the scenes that was ramping up to become more organized or more like official in some way. Maybe it did, and I just don't know about it, you know?
Well, I have a little thing to sort of piggyback off JJ, is that there is, I don't know if you're familiar with it, Celeste, but there is a order, it's called Buddhism for Vampires, excuse me.
Oh, I don't know that.
So so it's very LARPy, and like a lot of the, we'll say, very online Buddhists, especially on Twitter, we all laugh at it, but there is something that you're right about, because we do talk a lot about like things like the carnal ground, and we have vampires, and obviously like the kind of Babylon figure, like the Dakinis, the red girls, the Scarlet Woman. That's very prominent in Buddhism. So and they are sometimes considered vampires, but it's a conceptual. It's not literal. It's just strictly conceptual. So I can understand if you were a more literalist person, like you're saying, like you were taking sort of these books that are fictional, but you're sort of taking them out of their context and making them like a liturgical or a religious text. This is very interesting
almost,
to me also.
Yeah, it's, and I think, you know, you bring up a really great point there too, because there, in the tradition of witchcraft that I now practice, let's enter it from that angle. I practice like a kind of hybrid tradcraft, like traditional witchcraft blended with sort of folk Catholicism. That's sort of where my practice falls. But in traditional witchcraft and in folkloric witchcraft, I mean, you're drawing on folk tales. You're drawing on grimoires written by people, you know, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, which are in turn drawing on folk tales to formulate this sort of spiritual system and this magical practice. And so I think that the line between stories and reality is not quite as like firmly delineated as sometimes we think it is, especially if you're a magical practitioner or if you're an occultist. Like story and narrative are kind of the driving force of an occult worldview, whether or not your story is, you know, Crowley's writings or H.P. Lovecraft's writings through the lens of Crowley, you know, or fairy tales. Like it becomes the lens you are looking at the world through. And so I think, you know, in your case, you're talking about the vampire is not, of course, a literal thing that's going to come to your house and drink your blood in the middle of the night. It's a sort of metaphorical or symbolic kind of role. But I think sometimes there's more overlap in those things than we realize, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I mean, this is something that Nick knows I'm really fascinated by, this idea of like parafiction and metafiction, and sort of like looking at exactly like what you said, like Crowley's writing, it's so full of fiction, but people can't really distinguish it. So there's a point where it doesn't even matter, because it is kind of real. It is real if you believe it.
So you did mention you said Thelema was like definitely, was that like more of a bigger thing? That really like piqued
Like
my
on the
interest.
forum,
Yeah,
not explicitly. They were putting ideas out there that were, you know, Thelema adjacent, I would say. But they were mishmashing a lot of different spiritual concepts. There was just there seemed to be for them, like for these vampire moderators, a real fascination and definitely a level of knowledge about esoteric topics that definitely far exceeded what most of us or what like the average Joe on the street would know.
Right.
Did you
Yeah.
have any like members on there that had like sigils that they made of themselves, like as their logo and stuff? Do you have like shit like that?
I can't remember that off the top of my head, but I'm sure we did. I mean, sigil magic
You know what I
did
mean?
become, yeah, it did become, yeah, and because I think I know where you're going with, I think I know where you're going with that. Maybe I don't recall it, but it wouldn't surprise me. And I think if I'm right about where you're going with that, I think the concept is the same. I mean, I think I've seen people in the chat saying, you know, energy vampires. I think that there was some kind of energetic exchange happening. Whether you know, we use the term energy vampire or psychic vampire for just regular people in our lives who piss us off, right? It's your like boss who sucks the air out of the room immediately he walks in. If you're talking about it in an occult context, you're talking about somebody who's doing it more purposefully. They're trying to suck that energy out of you to kind of benefit themselves. And I think that there was a level of like energy siphoning or energy like vampirism going on in that place. I suspect purposefully. I don't remember sigils being a part of it explicitly, but it also wouldn't surprise me if that were the case.
Well, to
Did
go
you-
off, sorry,
Yeah.
Heidi.
Oh, I was just gonna say, did you have any other supernatural experiences while you were a part of that cult, other than like the dreams and stuff?
Most of what I directly experienced was stuff that took place in like a dream or dream adjacent space. So, and for that reason, you know, again, it's hard for me because I'm pretty pragmatic and skeptical, but I'm also somebody who like lives in this world and does this for a living. So in my brain, I hold two realities to be true at once. One, the brain is weird, and when we're asleep or half asleep, it does all sorts of weird shit. But
Right.
how you're going to interpret that weird shit that your brain is doing is really going to depend what your worldview is. If you're a super, like, you know, my partner is extremely scientific. He's like, he's fascinated by mysticism and the occult, but he doesn't really ascribe to it. He's a very sort of science-based guy. And so if he has a hypnagogic hallucination of something, he's waking up from a dream and he sees, you know, a guy standing in the corner of his room, he's just going to be like, my brain's doing something weird. If I see that, I'm going to say, my brain's doing something weird. But what is it trying to tell me? Is there some, you know, why is this happening today instead of last week? Is there some message that I'm supposed to be taking from this thing that I'm seeing? Which I realize I'm rambling now, but to your point, most of the things that I experienced in the cult that I would describe as in some way paranormal took place in that kind of sphere. The biggest, weirdest thing was that I did have one night an experience where I had been very frustrated with my lack of direct experience. All these other people, you know, this now dead 75-year-old woman were walking around being like, oh yeah, I meet the vampires all the time and they send me roses and take me out to lunch. And I'm like, bitch, where's my fucking excuse me, like where's my interaction? You know, I'm pissed off at this point. I'm like, she looks like a tiny old woman and I'm a hot 17-year-old. What's going on?
Right.
I'm pissed off. Where's my Bella
Yeah, that's like a
Swan
mind
moment, you
fuck.
know?
I can see that. for
Yeah.
sure.
Right.
Very frustrating.
Yeah.
So I'm going to bed that night and I'm like, you know, kind of talking in my head to one of these vampire moderators that I had a rapport with. And mentally, I'm just like, listen, motherfucker, like this has gone on long enough. We've been talking back and forth for so long, and you've been playing these mind games with me, and you've been sending me these little dreams. Like, show up, motherfucker. I'm ready. I won't go crazy.
Yeah.
So I fall asleep, and I wake up in the middle of the night, as you do sometimes, and I'm rolling over, and I stretch my legs out, nice big like sleepy time stretch, and my foot connects with a shape on the end of my bed, like a heft. And I think at first it's just like one of my cats or something. And so I kind of open my eyes blearily. I'm kind of feeling around this lump, and I realize that it's too big to be a cat. And when I open my eyes, I see that it's a figure sitting on the end of my bed. And it was very odd because I don't get sleep paralysis. I definitely do have hypnagogic hallucinations. I definitely do have lucid dreams, but I've never been a sleep paralysis girly. So I'm seeing this thing sitting at the end of my bed. And cognitively, I'm realizing this is what you asked for. This is what you wanted to happen. Like, this is your chance. But then my entire body is flooded with terror, just extreme terror. Like what I hear when people describe sleep paralysis, I assume that this is what they're experiencing. Like it was that level of visceral, just like,
Mm-hmm.
and then as I'm experiencing this, suddenly it's almost like getting anesthesia. I'm suddenly not afraid at all anymore. All the physical trappings of anxiety, like your heart rate going up and all of that, it just goes. And so again, cognitively, I know I'm scared, but I can't access the fear anymore either. And as I'm looking at all this happen, this person is crawling up the bed toward me. And my brain is my brain is like, stay awake, stay awake, stay awake, stay awake. You wanted this, don't go to sleep, go to sleep. And I just fall asleep. And I woke up in the morning and my bedside light was on, which it had been off before I had gone to bed. My bedroom door is open, which it had been closed before I went to bed. And I was like, well, and I think from memory, I logged onto the forum later that day, the group that I was a part of, and spoke to that moderator. And he said some cryptic shit about, how did you sleep or whatever, which could have been just an innocuous coincidence. But at the time I was like,
you didn't say anything about it?
I think I might have had a conversation with him about it. But it was one of those things too, where you never wanted them to think that you were going crazy. Because if they thought you were going crazy and you were like getting in way over your head, you were also going to get the boot, like if you were too crazy. So you had to kind of play it gingerly. And I think I'm sure we had a back and forth about it where he said some cryptic shit and I read into it and was secretly panicking, but I was just like, oh yeah, I slept fine. Why do you ask?
Right. He's basically saying like cryptic shit, like nice PJs last night or something like that.
Right. I hear you snore in your sleep, bitch. Like whatever.
Yeah. So I just have to say, for me, if I experienced something like that, whether it was related to the forum or not, I would perceive that it was, and also it would make me feel like it was more real than ever. I don't know, because you were awfully young when you were involved with this. And I know how I was at that age. And I feel like that would have been proof to me that this is like real and I'm really involved with something here.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
I can see how you got wrapped up in that because damn is all I got to say about that.
Did they try and like encourage you to have, because in the other interview I did, he spoke a lot about dreams, but also dream sexually connecting. And I would assume, I mean, like if they're in this group and they're trying to harness energy, that's like a really good way to do it.
I was gonna ask, but I didn't know how to get into that aspect.
Sorry.
No,
I
I've been having a chick to it.
The elephant in the room. Yes. It was one of those weird things where that was a topic that was definitely broached. There was also, because it was also like still in a weird sense role play. Like it was still, these people are these characters. And even though we really believe that they are these characters, we had a chat room, a group chat room, and people would go in and like write little scenes together. We had this whole thing where there was like a graveyard that we would all go hang out in and write these little stories together. And multiple times over the history of my involvement with this group, various different members had, like cyber sex with the moderators and things like that. And there definitely were conversations about, I'm going to come visit you in your dreams. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink, Never really happened to me, interestingly. I think I was way too crazy pants, and they were just like, oh, let's not give her any more fuel for that fire. She believes enough. She's enough of a loose cannon without us adding that to the mix. But one of the things that did occur in the in the group, which I mean, it could never happen today. Like somebody's parents would be filing a fucking lawsuit. There were kids who were like 13 and 14 who these people were having these like cyber sex relationships with, you know?
What?
Yeah.
Every cult's a sex cult.
It's inevitable.
You would think that.
I mean, 14 was the age, right? For Joseph
Right.
too. So, I mean, but really, honestly, if they're practicing occult magic, then they're going to know that, you know, especially if it's virginal, hate to be weird,
Sure.
but that's some powerful magic.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah. And
15-year-old vamp sex. Woo.
Right. That's the business. That's going to make you young forever in one way or another, or imprisoned forever, you know, if it were 2025. But
Right. Yeah.
Well, that's why I wanted to bring it up, because I thought it could have been part of, you know, like JJ was even trying to ask before, like what's their means? What are they getting out of this? I was wondering if there was
What's
some
the end game?
Yeah, if there was even just, I hate saying it, just like LARPers who are even just trying to get some online ass. You know,
I'm sure
Yeah.
that
From
was a part of it.
13-year-olds too.
Yeah,
Like, hey,
yeah.
send me a picture.
I'm thinking
and
you're already
you're-
woke.
Yeah.
Well, we've been talking about vampire cults here on Occult Rejects across the United States, Mexico, and now some Australia stuff. So is this the question we ask every other time? Is
Right?
what's the is this like Australian MK Ultra situations connected to this? Because that's what it seems like with the American and Mexican versions.
Well, that's a
That is
great
true.
question.
That is true. I forgot that we have covered those vampire
we
cults.
talk a lot of vampire stuff.
Man,
Wesley
I
Snipes, somewhat unrelated. He played a vampire, but he then
gotta
used
stop.
that money to finance a sex cult. That's a different
gotta stop
story altogether.
listening to y'all's stuff more often. I'm like, vampire cults every second day around here. Yeah, I mean, everybody in this group, I was one of the only Australian people, so everybody else was US based.
Oh, even more
But like the
intriguing.
MK
Okay.
Ultra thing is interesting. I mean, I don't really believe this, I will caveat, but like in my decade plus to like ruminate on all the experiences and just let my galaxy brain like ponder possibilities,
Okay.
there have been moments where I've been like, was this psyop? Like, was this some sort of like government, like CIA psychic recruitment technique? And then I'm like, no, you need to, I don't even smoke weed, but if I did, like, you need to stop, you need to put it down. That's a little too kooky. But, you know, I mean, the thing is that the universe and the world and the internet for sure are much weirder than we think they are, you know?
But I think you're
Sure.
on the right track, because I think they set up these forums and stuff. Not saying anything about you, because obviously you're a lovely person.
Oh, no, of
But
course.
I think you look for levels of psychopathy in people. I think the QAnon thing should prove that to everyone.
Well, that's
They weaponize these forums. They get into people's heads. They get them believing stuff.
Mhm.
They see what levels they can push you to act out in reality. And
Yep.
so, yeah, I mean, I think you were part of one, but I think there's many, many, many diverse different ones you can become a part of. And they look for like people with levels of psychopathy that they can control and manipulate and essentially,
Mhm.
you know, have them do things.
Well, sure.
I think you
But in a
hit
general
the nail
sense,
on
I
the
think they
head,
just
and
want to study human behavior. Oh, apologize,
Yep.
Celeste. Go ahead.
Yeah. No. I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you brought up the QAnon thing though. So I have one of my best friends is just got her PhD and she's working in a research capacity, or was until very recently for reasons. But she's working on research to do with online extremism, and you know how groups online can become a little dangerous for various reasons. She's been reading school shooter manifestos for the better part of 5 years, and she's very tired and very sad, as you can imagine.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Over the last week, we were talking about this. She's known about this part of my history for years, but she was like, you really need to read this book by this woman who just published a nonfiction book about QAnon. And the book's called The Quiet Damage by Jesslyn Cook. It's really, really, really good. Highly recommend everybody read it. But it talks about what it looks like for regular people to get entangled in things like this, entangled into communities and into belief systems that do completely change their outlook on life, but also have these overarching consequences, not just for their immediate families and their social groups, but for, possibly the country, the world. And I think it's much more common when we think. QAnon is the example that people point to as the real, like, oh boy, like that's the crazies, right? But there's a lot of groups like that in
I was
big
gonna
and
say
small
there's
ways.
like varying degrees of it. There's somebody who's been in our chat the last couple of minutes. His name's Drew, and I actually did a show with him before. And we talked about the Hoover Dam. And there was a guy who got obsessed with QAnon, and he got in his car and drove it to the Hoover Dam and was going to try to blow it up or something like. I mean, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. People get obsessed with these things. But I have to say though, do you remember when MySpace came out? All right, that was like the thing to do before Facebook, and you had like your top 5 friends or whatever. You put a little song on your
many
page
controversies if you took someone out of your top 5, and then it was the top 8, so it was a little better. But
yes, I mean, I was so into MySpace when it first came out, and I didn't. Catfish, the movie, had not come out yet. And there were several times I was catfished. And when I look back on it, these profiles, they'd have like 5 pictures, and they were all like, like supermodel edited, like super hot emo guys. Cause that was like my generation was like emo guys. And they all had on like Sleeping with Sirens t-shirts, and they just were like the perfect, like, oh my God, I was so obsessed. Easily, I could have been lured to the mall, kidnapped, raped, thrown in a van, dead by the river. It would have been so easy because nobody thought about that stuff back then. Like, oh, this can't be a real person. Let me do some FBI type shit and find out, like, and look at this. It just wasn't. Nowadays, I think everybody's a freaking psyop person. I don't even trust half my family members anymore. But like, it just wasn't a thing back then.
And it was harder to even if you had thought to yourself, this XX, my wrist slit XX boy looks a little sketchy. I don't know if he's real or not. Like, even if that had crossed your mind, the tools to sleuth it out were not there. Like, it wasn't like it is now. You have your little AI face lookup sites where you can upload someone's picture and be like, show me where else on the internet this person has been. You can do it.
Like a Google image search of that person's profile pic, and then they turn up to be like somebody else. I mean, that's how that Catfish lady got away with it for so long. Because she would take like pictures from Google or other people's Facebooks and like upload them. And dude, she had a whole network worked out. But social media and these forums and stuff in themselves, I think they were created by design, obviously, for some type of outcome. And I think that they've been working perfectly for whatever that is.
Yeah. 100%.
Something I wanted to ask, and I actually mean this seriously. I'm just trying to get what's going on here. Or how far does this go? Besides vampires in this thing, did they entertain other things that were maybe like, fairies and gnomes or like, I'm being serious, but
no, I take it seriously. I have many friends in real life who think gnomes are real. So
no, but I'm just, you know what I'm saying?
I'm a gnome truther. It's fine. Yeah, no, not really. I mean, I think that there was some. We definitely had like a paranormal board on the forum. I mean, for anyone who's listening, and you guys will all know, but for anyone who's listening, who's like forums, boards, what, like you had your main forum, but then you had your sub boards, kind of like in a Discord server for like different stuff. And there was definitely like a paranormal board where people would talk about ghosts were a big thing, like ghosts, spirits, apparitions, stuff like that. And I think if anyone ever came across like an interesting story about an encounter with something else, like an alien or a gnome or whatever, I'm sure we would talk about it, but it wasn't so much part of the world, what they were building and trying to really push on people.
Right. So it was like really just strictly, I guess what I'm trying to get at is like, it wasn't like other forums for other things, that it was just strictly really that. Vampire.
Yeah. It was like vampires all day, every day.
Okay.
Or mostly all night, because they're asleep during the day.
Nice.
Jin said something about a PDF of Buddhism for vampires. What is that?
Okay, so he was a guy, the guy who runs it. He was a very famous Typhonian OTO member, and he did train. I don't know how extensively. He doesn't say. That's usually how it goes. But he has some kind of initiation into some basic Vajrayana practices. So then he created like a whole system of psychic vampirism. He called it Buddhism for vampires because, as I said, we do discuss like very carnal ground kinds of ideas. So yeah, I mean but it is like Celeste and Nick were talking about. It is Typhonian OTO, but then it's also there are Vajrayana things. There are maybe like kind of that like superficial. I'm using the word in a more occultist way, but more of a satanic, flavor. But it's not really like crazy Satanism. It's more just the aesthetic, maybe a goth aesthetic. So that's really what Buddhism for vampires is. But even if you look at the logo for it, it is just the 777 thing, like the Telema star. That's all it really is. But they gave it like a Buddhist flair.
That's
What's
interesting.
Typhonian mean?
Oh,
What does that mean?
Jin will be better at explaining that than me
There you
because
go.
I'm only a peripheral OTO knower.
Well, I mean, I honestly, my background is more like you, Celeste, in a way, because like I came from a left-hand path Catholicism kind of person. Like I was really into grimoires and like left-hand path saints and all that stuff. As everybody already knows.
Like Cyprian and stuff.
Yeah, like Cyprian
Cool.
and there's other ones. There's like Saint Lucy, obviously Saint Peter, all those. Yeah, all also left-hand path. So it depends, right? But so Typhonian OTO. Well, I'm familiar with Kenneth Grant, so I'll explain it like this, Julia. Is Kenneth Grant, he basically wrote a series of parafictional books, just like I mentioned before. So his books are half fiction, half OTO material. But he takes it in a Lovecraftian way. Well, there's really two factions. There's a Lovecraftian faction, and you can see this with Temple of Set. Like, I really like Don Webb. Don Webb, also Temple of Set, but he became a Buddhist afterwards, interestingly. But he wrote a lot of these kind of books on Lovecraft and how they were using this idea of Lovecraft in their magic and how Aquino was so into it. But then there's this other faction that is into Conan the Barbarian and the Hyperborean stories.
I don't think I knew this part.
Wow.
So there is a kind of factional divide. I just find that very interesting. But basically, he's talking about like abyssal gods and the Mauvre and he calls it the Grey Lodge. I also have a thing called the Grey Lodge. It's not related, but it is interesting that we both have the same title. But basically, he's bringing these ideas that not necessarily come from mythology, or not necessarily come from, like a religious cosmology, but he's drawing from this kind of fictional mythology that's contemporary, and they're bringing it into actual magical ideas, not just the facts of the fiction, but they're actually applying like more technical ideas, and then they're slotting in the names, the faces, the aesthetic. It's all of it. And so that's really what
could you do
like,
that with anything though? Could you do that with
Yes.
like vampires and put them in there?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, that's
it's
what
like
chaos magicians
chaos
do that all the
magic.
time.
I was just gonna say chaos
Yeah.
magic with Typhonian and sex magic to the goddess.
That's
what I
another
was
reason
gonna
why I asked about the sigils as well. A lot of
Well,
chaos.
and there are branches. Oh, go ahead, Nick.
I was just saying a lot of chaos magicians love sigils, so that's why I was asking if people were using.
Oh yeah.
That, so.
Jin,
Yeah,
you're
there
a
are-
wealth of knowledge. I love you.
For sure. Always, Jen. Thank you.
No, that was an awesome explanation. I've always been fascinated by the Typhonian OTO. I mean, I love Lovecraft. And even though I have not now and will not ever join the OTO in any capacity for personal reasons, I am fascinated, by that. I think it's such rich fodder. Like, stories are rich fodder, right? Especially if you get a rich mythology like Lovecraftian mythology, or I am only passingly familiar with Conan the Barbarian, but you're taking an intellectual property or a world or a mythology that already has all the interlocking parts, but also an engine of people who have fed into it. Even though most people are not reading H.P. Lovecraft's work and being like, oh, that's all definitely real. It's energy behind it from people for, well, not hundreds of years, but people for like a very long time reading and investing and being interested. And that's energy. That's energy that's causing a little battery.
They made a show about it, right? Am I the only one who saw that? It was like H.P. Lovecraft show.
Lovecraft Country?
County.
I didn't watch it, but I heard it was good.
No, I didn't see that.
Oh yeah, I saw the first season. And it's everything you would expect it to be. But yeah, no, this stuff really interests me because, I talk a lot about occultism and stuff like that, but I don't know the ins and outs of it, like, Jen or even Celeste or Nick. I know
don't
the very
include me in that.
peripheral of it. If I want to know something about the process, Church, I'll ask you, JJ.
But I'll tell you one thing
Or
about Typhonian OTO
Scientology.
that I do know. There you go. I can help you with that as well. But one thing I do know about the Typhonian OTO is they have further offshoots that are these werewolf and vampire orders, I believe.
Interesting.
Well, I just want to deny any rumors that I'm associated with any of this. I really come from it from a chaos magic perspective. That's really my interest, Julia, is that I like the lifting of frameworks, like that you can take just the magic framework and you can sort of apply ideas to it. But I take it all conceptual. So that's a true chaos magic. Maybe you could say true chaos magician. You just take it completely in your mind. And so Buddhism makes it's like the next logical step if you're able to do that. Whereas some people, they require all this. Nick will laugh, but I call it like the ceremonial LARPing. Like they require the Ren Fair. I'm not saying that I'm not saying that you don't burn candles and do all that stuff. That can be useful for sure. But I'm just saying if you need like a whole ritual like thing, then yeah, maybe you would be more interested in like Typhonian OTO. I'm just interested in the ideas. That's
the ritualism interests me because I remember one time I was talking to Nick and he made me laugh my fucking ass off because he said he was doing something in his bedroom with swinging some incense or doing something, and his wife walked in and was like, "What are you doing the Catholic rites or something?" And I was like, literally, it's the Catholicism has a lot of that ritualism in it. So it interests me about that. So
yeah, one thing I did want to mention about the Typhonian order, if you're like into like Thelemic magic or even Golden Dawn or a lot of like I would even assume maybe even the Temple of Set, I don't, stuff like that. At least with Thelema, you're going to be practicing like the hexagram ritual and the pentagram ritual probably for a long time. That's going to be like something that you are used to doing constantly. And in the hexagram ritual, you use the LVX formula, and in there at some point you acknowledge Apophis and Typhon. And the weird thing is that the whole LVX formula is Egyptian. That's why it uses Apophis, but then tosses in the Greek Apophis. Typhon. And that's kind of like the rising beast, in my opinion. That's what I think it's symbolizing. You even go like that when you acknowledge Apophis and Typhon. So I have wondered if I do think that when it comes to the Typhonian order, maybe at the beginning it was more for people that he thought that might have like had experienced maybe like actual magical experiences, or I could be wrong, but even another reason why I do think that might be possible is because when it first started, I don't know if it's still like this. He took the same, like pretty much adopted the same OTO initiations or degrees, but you did not have to start off at the first if he didn't think you belonged there.
Huh.
So now if you did have a magical experience, and in my opinion, you did cross the abyss, you shouldn't be coming in starting at fucking first. You should be coming in where you belong. So I'm wondering if that is just more proof of why I do think that might be the difference between that order as well. Like, I think maybe at inception, he wasn't so much trying to have people come there that don't know what the fuck they're doing.
That makes sense.
Like newbies.
Yeah, or people who don't actually know what magic is. The people
Of
that
which,
learn
of which
Yeah,
many
well-
occultists do not, unfortunately, right?
I was
Yeah,
gonna
yeah.
say,
That's-
doesn't it take a while to really understand what it is? Because I mean,
Probably, yeah.
there's
Maybe
so
too.
many. Actually, I have a question for you, Celeste, and
yeah.
you're the first witch I've ever met, so don't judge
Oh,
me.
I would
Um,
never.
Did being a part of this cult, did it lead you into those interests? Like, did it lead you down the thought of like, I want to do witchery stuff?
You know, not really. I have a weird like story with how that part of my life like kicked off, and it sounds like very cringe almost to tell it, but like literally when I was like 6 and 7 years old, I was like pretending to be a fortune teller, like in my like little like hut in the garden, and like I was just always extremely drawn to that stuff, reading a lot of like kids books, but reading books about witches and stuff when I was like very little. So I don't know where that comes from for me. I mean, a lot of kids have spooky interests, but for me, it really was like lifelong. And it just evolved over time into researching and learning about more serious stuff, and beginning when I was Wiccan primarily when I was a teenager, because much like vampires were having a boom, so were witches because of the craft and
Yeah, I
stuff
was
like
gonna
that. Right?
say, I
Yeah.
wondered if those two things kind of like ran together, like maybe the interest in the cult kind of fueled your other interests.
It
kind of.
definitely like fueled it to some degree. It existed beforehand, but it definitely kind of it introduced me to a lot of occult topics that I probably wouldn't have found otherwise until much later. Stuff like
Mhm.
Tibetan Buddhism and the mysticism in Tibetan Buddhism. I mean, I wouldn't probably have encountered that on my own until much
Mhm.
later if I hadn't have been in the cult. So it springboarded me into more serious occultism at like a young age. But I
Okay.
think I would always have found that to be like a path that I would have gone down. It took it in an interesting direction at an earlier age, I think.
And you do it professionally, you said, for like the last 7 or 8 years?
Yeah, so I have done like magic and psychic stuff for work since I was about 19, but very like part-time. I started as an online psychic as a part-time job when I was about 19 for a
Mhm.
site called Kasamba, which still exists. I do not work for them anymore because they would not pay me enough.
Mhm. Sure.
But I did that, as a side hustle all through college, and continued to do such things as a side hustle for a long time. And then in about 2017 maybe, I was very, very unhappy in my marketing job, my full-time marketing job for a retro clothing company, and I kind of rage quit to just do it full time. I worked for a while out in Jackson Square in the French Quarter as one of the little tarot readers set up at a little
That's
thing
cool.
out there. It was cool, except people got stabbed a lot, and that wasn't so cool. So,
Yeah, no shit.
I was not a fan of that. So after a little while out there, I got a job at some of the little stores in the French Quarter, just reading cards and stuff, and worked for a while at the Vampire Boutique in the French Quarter, which is another interesting kind of like intersection of vampires coming back into the story. And then I got my own store in the French Quarter in 2020. Like right at the beginning of 2020, I signed this lease on my own storefront, which, in tarot reader New Orleans terms is like you've hit the big if you're getting your own shop, So I was super
Mhm.
stoked about that. I was in business with a friend of mine. We decorated the whole place, super excited. And then COVID lockdowns happened.
I was gonna say, yeah.
And so for me, though, actually, it was a lifesaver because I actually hate talking to people face to face. Like I'm a very low energy person as far as like being one-on-one in person with people. I love the internet. I love talking online and phone and all of that, but it drains me very quickly having to be like FaceTime with
Face to
people.
face. Mhm.
Mm-hmm. So I was already kind of almost wishing I hadn't signed this lease because I was like, oh God, am I going to do this for 60 hours a week for like the rest of my life? Just go down to the French Quarter and have to find parking and deal with people. Ugh. And then, the lockdowns happened. I was very lucky. The person I was renting from said that it was cool. We would just cancel the lease, and I pivoted everything online. And so for the past 5 years full time, I do spell work for people. I do readings. I do trance, like mediumship sessions and stuff like that.
What's spell work?
pretty much what it sounds like. So, if you're a magical practitioner or an occultist, people are gonna call it different things depending on what they practice and what their path is. More ceremonial magicians are probably going to call it rituals rather than spell work, which sounds kind of like shincy, we're going to do a little spell work with our little jars and our little candles. But but yeah, it's essentially it's a ritual or a spell that is done with various different materials in order to impact or affect a desired outcome. And so if you learn witchcraft or magic, or you become initiated into any of the initiatory traditions, you're going to learn how to do it in a certain way. In my opinion, anyone can learn. As Nick was saying earlier, I don't think that means everybody on the planet is going to experience real magic, because that does take years of study. And sometimes it just takes circumstance and kismet, whether or not you're going to have that experience or not. But in theory, you don't have to be special in any way to learn how to do magic. Anyone can learn how to do magic. However, for my clients, a lot of them don't want to do that. They would rather just pay somebody else to do it. And so I do it for them.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's so interesting. Have you ever had anybody be like, I want this person dead, or do something bad to this person? Or I'm serious.
I was going to ask
weirdos out there. Oh, yeah.
It happens.
What's the curse environment situation here? For example, what's your opinion of haunted dolls curses?
Oh, I think haunted dolls exist, but I have a quirky opinion on haunted dolls. I think they exist. I don't know if anyone here has read the work of, oh my God, what is her name? I'm going to forget now. She wrote the Exorcist's Handbook. Her name's Josephine something, but Josephine McCarthy.
Oh,
real stuff?
Yeah, so Josephine McCarthy is an occultist from the UK. She's a fascinating lady, and she really knows her shit.
I know she is.
And and she worked as a straight up exorcist, not in the Catholic tradition. She's not Catholic, but she worked as an exorcist for years and years and years. And she has an interesting theory about haunted objects, haunted dolls. She says that in her experience professionally over 30 plus years of doing exorcisms, anything with a face is something that a spirit is going to.
Why does that give me the fucking creeps? Oh my God.
Yeah, I was hoping you were going to say that they don't exist. That's what I was hoping you were going
sorry,
with.
No. I didn't.
Damn it.
I've never met one personally, but I do think they're real.
Like Annabelle and Chucky.
I've met a haunted doll.
Really?
You did
Robert
not.
the doll. Yep. Oh yeah.
Is that in
That's Chucky, isn't
West?
it?
Yeah, down in Key West, Florida.
In Key West, I've seen him too. Yeah.
They're dangerous folks down there. You don't put a haunted doll in a Civil War fort where some historian buff such as myself might stumble across it.
No, bad
Take
plan.
a photograph with it and get cursed for about 10 or 12 years.
Did you really, JJ?
Yeah.
I think
that thing cursed
it
me.
can happen. I do. And I think,
Yeah.
depending on your worldview, right? Spirits are everywhere. They're not special and only hiding in these very specific areas effing you up. Spirits are all over the place. Last night, so I live with another occultist. My roommate is former Mormon, now an occultist, lovely guy.
Oh, Nexmo.
Oh,
so they just transitioned from one form of occultism to another.
He's amazing. But came out of my room last night into the kitchen. I was just going to get water or something, and he's in the kitchen also, and he pulls me aside and he was like, I just need to tell you that when I was coming in here earlier, I glanced into the living room and I thought I saw you sitting in a chair with your hands over your eyes. And then I looked again and realized it wasn't you. I just think you should know. And I said, yeah, okay. That's good intel to have. I said, how did it feel? He said, wet. I said, wet. He was like, it felt wet. I didn't like it. I was like, okay, that's not great. I said, well, what are we going to do about this? We're instantly in occult roommate problem solving mode because neither one of us has time for that shit. We're not really scared. We're just like, ugh, no. And so he goes and gets some of his cleansing cologne and spritzes it over the chair in the living room. And I'm trying to think to myself, this is weird. I've lived in this house for almost 8 years and I don't really experience any, problematic spirit activity for the most part. So what could this be? And then I said to my roommate, I was like, it's interesting you say wet. I said, when I first moved in here, I did distinctly get the impression that somebody had died in the bathtub in like the bathroom in the hallway. And he was like, oh shit. And I said, yeah. I said, but I've never had any problem with that spirit. Like I just said to her, you know, I'm a little crazy. So if I think there's a spirit around, I'll be like, hi, I need to do things. Please don't disrupt my life. Sorry. I said, yeah, me and that spirit are cool. Like, I don't think it would be causing problems. And then I remembered that the night before I had taken a bath in that bathroom where this woman, I think, drowned. And I had forgotten to drain the bathtub. Like I had been on the phone with someone and I didn't want them to know I was in the bath. So like I got out of the bath and just like kept the stopper in so it didn't have the water gurgling sound. And I had left the bath full for the entire day. And I was like, oh, that's it. The spirit's pissed. Like this.
Oops.
Oh, she cut out. She cut out.
Yeah, she did say that she was having bad weather there, so that this might have happened.
It's the magic.
Yeah,
It's
maybe.
the bathtub
it's the
portal.
spirit. It's the
the
spirit.
water. The water bathtub portal sucked her back in. Because I'm not kidding on the
It
bathtub
is the
portal.
spirit.
Yeah.
That's
no.
I wanted to ask him more questions about Josephine McCarthy.
I
That lady
wanted to
actually
ask her another question
Yeah.
too.
had Florida,
She
though.
comes
Yeah.
Yo,
JJ, are
Yeah.
you really cursed?
Yeah. I wrote him a. I wrote. I asked again.
JJ.
I wrote him and Nick. I wrote him a letter a couple of months ago. Robert the Doll. That is.
Yeah. JJ told
wrote
me
him
this
a letter.
story.
Let me tell you, Julie, I can feel a long discussion in the last 12 or so years. I've been cursed by that damn Robert the Doll. They were
How do
talking
you
about him
know
on
it
the
was
Occult
that?
Rejects last
Did you
week,
make fun of it or
and
something?
I said, I'm out.
Did
I'm
you-
leaving this place. I'm not even gonna go anywhere near this thing when you're talking
What'd
about
you
it.
do to it? You had to make it mad. Did you?
I took a
make fun
photograph
of
with it
it?
without asking him. Apparently, you got to ask him first.
Oh.
And at the time, I was like, "Yeah, that's ridiculous. I'm going to ask this stupid doll if I can take a photograph."
I hear what you're saying.
Well, look at now, JJ. Look
Yeah.
at now. I'm
12
not kidding
cursed
about
years
that
later,
water
I was like,
portal,
"This
though.
thing might be onto something here. I might be cursed."
I
Did
told
you
you
sodomize
what
him
to
before
do.
you took the picture?
Oh,
Yeah, but I'm not gonna lie to you. So like every year around like December 1st, about every year, I'd start considering. After about year 5 or so, I'd start considering, damn it, did that dog curse me? You know. And then around year 12, I was like, I'm gonna finally write that doll a letter and say, I'm sorry, doll.
Yeah.
Did you really, JJ? Stop
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
I hope
I
it
can
stops.
only imagine how that went.
I don't think. Well, I hope it stops too. It hasn't gone well since then. I'm not gonna be honest with
Shoot.
you. It's
He's still pissed. You're gonna have to go back there.
Yeah.
Face-to-face apology.
We need to
Yeah.
find a curandero who can like deal with it for you, JJ, like in person.
That's what's up.
And then you need to go to like the doll and you have to like give him like a 7-day candle or something.
You have to homage it. Yeah.
I'm still writing the Chamber of Commerce and telling them they're irresponsible for putting a haunted cursed doll out in public like that, flagrantly.
I mean,
JJ,
yeah.
you need an exorcism. you need like the power of Christ compels you like this.
Right?
And then it-
I think we should have Jonathan do it from the cult. Let him
oh
know.
Lord have mercy. JJ, you do need a full body exorcism though. You need to get tied
kidding?
down, sprayed with pea soup,
Oh yeah.
all of it. You have
Right?
to do all of it.
You have to get naked because half the time they get naked, they rip their clothes off. You know, it's the
Oh
whole thing.
sure. Yeah. Piss and shit everywhere.
Yep.
Or else it
You
doesn't
throw
work.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the solution is, but I'm not the first person to be cursed by Robert the Doll. The whole room that he
man.
sits in down there at this old Civil War fort where they made into a museum of Robert for some reason. It sits on a mound, by the way.
To curse people, by the way. To curse
Right,
people.
exactly.
Yeah.
Intentionally, those flagrant, irresponsible bastards.
They put
Yeah,
him
The
on a
whole room's
mound.
got letters. What's that?
They put him on a mound.
The Civil War fort was built on top of a mound. He's inside the Civil
Of
War
course.
fort.
Ah,
Oh,
she's
my
back.
goodness.
Yay.
Bless.
Yay.
Oh gosh, you're back.
God damn it.
I had at least 3 more
Don't
questions
talk
for
smack
you.
about ghosts.
We were talking
Yeah.
smack about ghosts while you were gone too.
Yes.
But I definitely say it's because you left the water in the tub, and that's a portal, and you might have, Mhm.
One thing
you summoned it.
can you hear us, Celeste?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, you sound great.
Okay. Sorry about that. That was weird. Don't talk shit about ghosts, I guess. This lady was pissed at me. She was like, let's shut the whole shit down. Stop saying words about me. Oh my
Access
goodness.
denied. Yep. Access denied.
One thing I did want to ask you about, you mentioned Josephine McCarthy. Did you know about her magical order?
I heard about it. I don't know a ton about it, but I did hear about
Oh,
it. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually, I do, I've talked about before. I think I've even mentioned it once or twice, but I have talked about it tons of times that I was in the OTO, and I had stopped going for a bit before COVID happened, and then I started joining in on the Zoom things. And when I had stopped going for probably about like 6 to 8 months, I was actually using that system instead.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So when you said that, I was like, oh.
Did you find it? You found it to be a good workable system?
I think so. It's a little bit more personal. You're not really, from as far as I got, you're not really working with. It's hard to explain, like pantheons of gods. It's actually just very personal stuff. So that interested. I mean, you are doing ritual work, but it's not like I don't remember. Like it wasn't. It's different. It's definitely different.
Yeah. I like her approach a lot. I think she's a fascinating person. And if I'm sure you have, but if anyone ever listens to her talk, on podcasts or whatever, she's just a wonderful breath of fresh air in the occult world, because she's a slight, not older woman, but she's, I think in her 50s, I believe. And she's got this like strong Northern England accent, and she's just like she's very matter of fact. She's like,
shoots from the hip. One thing she did say that did kind of actually help nudge me out of the OTO in a sense too. And it's not that like I'm promoting her stuff, because again, I used did very little. She even says to go through the whole course, expect I think 17 to 20 years. So obviously I didn't do much. But the way she had put it, and it really dawned on me like really good when she said this one time. I was listening to a podcast that she did. And she did say that when you go to these orders, they said, all you're going to do is get their shade of magic. She says, let's say the outlet is actual magic. And, well, you're tapping into that, and then it comes to that light bulb. She says, once, like the OTO is like throwing that red shade on top of it. That's the OTO. Then, like, let's say the gold one's the Golden Dawn. You know what I'm saying? You're not actually really tapping into the source. You're just learning to tap into their shade of magic. She says, I think it's much better for you to just go to the source. And she said that's what she's for.
That's really profound, actually.
Yeah, when I heard that, I was like, that's interesting. Because I could see what how you mean that. Because there is a specific idea with the OTO, or other orders. They have their own pantheons and their own like ideas of almost religious.
Right. Does this lady do distance exorcisms? Because I think JJ needs one.
Yeah, might need to sign up for that.
I think she's retired now, unfortunately. I think I read.
What about you, Celeste? Do you do any distance exorcisms?
Most of the magic I do for clients is distance. So yeah, JJ needs an exorcism. He knows where to go.
JJ made Robert the Doll mad.
You know some Robert the Doll exorcist. You know some folks could help me out.
I feel like we could. I feel like we could figure something out. Robert the Doll's still bothering you all these years later, huh?
Oh, you wouldn't believe the tales if I told you. You really wouldn't.
Lord.
He's being totally serious too.
Nick's shaking his head because Nick's heard a portion of what I've gone through over the last 12 or so years.
I was even going to say, just in the time that I've known him, I could probably say he's probably.
Yeah, the last year's been pretty rough, huh?
Damn.
You're cursed he needs a lifter.
Yeah, I gotta hook him up with that Saint Cyprian good stuff. So
yeah, there you go. Cyprian on the case, he'll do it.
So I have a question for you, Celeste. I mean, obviously, I don't deal in any of this stuff, but in your opinion, magic is real, magic works, but not everybody knows what they're doing.
Oh yeah, yep, that's
okay.
Well, yeah. Certain magic, like we've talked about before, Solomonic magic and stuff, you can't be messing around. Like will talk about
because it is very real. And I think like obviously everybody's going to have their own take on that and their own experiences. And like I said, my own partner is extremely supportive of what I do and interested and wants to hear about it. But like he has such I don't want to call it a black and white worldview because that's not fair, but it is such a pragmatic worldview that what interests him is data. He's like a big data science guy, and that's mysticism to him, is like data and facts and numbers, stuff that flies over my head, right? Like I don't understand any of that. But that is magic.
John D
Exactly.
says that numbers are God's language. So
Exactly,
for sure.
exactly.
Mhm.
So you know, my partner and I, we meet in the middle because he is, whether he wants to admit it or not, a very mystical person. He's just coming at it from this different angle. But all of this to say, the question of like, is magic real? I mean, it's very real to me, and I've seen things happen because of magic and as a result of magic that I really can't explain otherwise. And I think that some people who engage in the occult or dabble, I hate to use that word because it feels a bit dismissive, but like dabble in witchcraft or you know, people who see rituals on the internet and they're like, oh, you know, I'll summon this Solomonic demon, that sounds like a fun time. It's not a fun time.
Do it.
Like,
Don't do it.
It
you
doesn't
know,
sound like a fun time to me. I mean, were you ever
No.
scared getting into this?
yeah, I've been scared so much. Oh my God.
Okay. Thank you
I
for
mean,
being honest, by the way.
yeah, no, I think it's important to talk about. I will say when I first got, you know, involved with magic and witchcraft, I wasn't scared at all. But then early 2020, after I had been doing this already for like a long time, I had my ass handed to me in a way that was fucking terrifying, to the point where like after I came through that experience, I was like this close to throwing out all my shit, getting rid of all my books and being like, that's it for me, because that got a little too real.
Well, I think that you're smarter now, because I will say this, I'm a nurse as well, like a registered nurse. And the most scary thing we ever see is a nurse that thinks she knows everything, right? And like you're a better nurse if you don't really know
right.
everything and you're willing to ask for help. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Also,
You were like having scary like demons or ghosts or
I had an experience with a spirit. And I had been, you know, I don't know if it's close to what JJ has been through, but I was having some experiences that there was just a little bit too many bad things clustering in a short space of time. And, you know, I'm again very much a skeptic. I'm like, okay, bad things happen. You know, sometimes you're just going to have a bad day. Your car's going to break down. A family member's going to get hurt. Like, it just happens. That's life. But if too many of those things cluster in a small space of time, for me, with my worldview, I'm like, okay. And so I had done what I usually do in those situations, which was I had, you know, done a ritual to just kind of cleanse myself and my space and get rid of any ick that was floating around. Mm-hmm. And when I did that, the candle I was burning went completely black. It was, you know, a glass jar candle. And in candle magic, candle divination, if you're burning something and it goes all the way down black soot, that is not a good sign. And halfway through it burning down, the candle exploded and then nearly burned down the room that I was burning it in. So at that point I was like, something's up. That's not good. And I talked to a couple of friends of mine and some mentors about what could be going on. And yeah, let's go. Rounds with Robert. We'll live stream it. It can be
revenge is yours,
please,
JJ.
Oh
revenge
my God,
is yours.
please live stream it. Oh, I want to be a part of it. I will cast it out too.
I don't want to be any part of it, Julie. I don't want to go anywhere near that damn curse thing.
I was gonna say, like, a ghost just turned off my entire ass computer setup. I probably shouldn't be so ballsy. Like, yeah, let's go. Let's take down Robert. But anyway, what happened was at that point I asked some friends for their thoughts. This is something that I will say, if anyone is a practitioner or they want to be a practitioner, get yourself a tight group of occultist friends that you trust, who you can turn to if you're having an experience, whether it's a dream or weird stuff happening in your life, or you think you're seeing a spirit. It's so important to be discerning, because sometimes it's just you and you're tired and you're paranoid and your head's all fucked up. So get people you trust that you can talk to, who can check for you and just be a little bit of a grounding influence. But very sadly, in this instance, my friend was kind of looking into it for me, and he said, oh no, there's definitely something's up. There's something around you or in your house, or, you know, you got to get rid of it. So he gave me his recommendation of what kind of ritual I should do to really deal with this thing. And basically it's called a spirit trap ritual. My friend's a conjure man, so it's kind of in this folk conjure, part Goetia, part other. We weren't summoning any demons to do it, but it was sort of a Solomonic folk magic ritual to deal with the
Yeah.
spirit.
Well, I understand. Well, because in Solomonic magic, you are trying to trap a demon into a
Yeah,
specific.
you're trying to bind the spirit. And so we used this rite, or I used this rite to do it. He told me all the steps to do. I got everything ready. And the ritual involved, it used planetary arrows. If anyone watching, or I'm sure some of y'all on the call have done it, but if you're using like planetary magic, it's very specific timing wise. You've got to be up at a certain time, down to the minute, to call on certain energies and certain spirits. So anyway, I prep everything. I get it all organized. This was quite a few years ago. I told my boyfriend at the time, like, don't worry about me tomorrow. Just ignore me. I'm going to be doing some stuff. Just live your life. If I'm chanting in a room, don't worry about it. And the morning that I was due to do this, I think I had to start at 5 a.m. I woke up in the worst pain of my life. And I had like 11 out of 10 GI pain. I was like, I'm going to be inelegant. I was shitting my brains out. I was shitting like pure
spraying out the ass.
stomach bile.
I knew it.
And I was oscillating between like the bathtub and the toilet, and then trying to get because I had to do shit on the hour every hour for this ritual. And I remember messaging with my friend and being like, I think I'm dying. Like, I am in so much pain. I can't stop shitting. Like, what? I have to finish this ritual. And he was like, well, yeah, the spirit doesn't want to go and it's pissed at you. And I was like, fantastic. Well, I might have to go to a hospital. Like, what do you recommend I do here? And he was like, you just got to get it done. You cannot stop doing it now. My partner was like my then partner was witnessing this all and being like, you look like shit. Like, I was running a fever. I couldn't walk. My partner at the time was like, you have to go to a hospital. And I was like, no, I have to finish chanting to Saturn.
Did you say, if I don't finish this, we're going to have Loch Ness Monster in the bathtub? Listen.
Right, we're going to have worse problems than me shitting my pants if you don't go back to bed. Shut up.
And shitting your pants is definitely a fucking problem.
It's a problem.
I mean, I've been there.
Yeah.
Spraying out the ass like that is
it's
not
great.
fun.
It's not
fun. Serious.
I do not recommend.
It happens.
I do not recommend the colonoscopy by spirit. It's like not a fun time. So,
that's like a cleanse. That was a free cleanse.
It's a spiritual cleanse.
Right.
But it got done, right? So I finished
Goetic colonoscopy.
Goetic colonoscopy will be the title of my autobiography. My God. But I did it. I finished it. It got done. I think it was about a 12-hour process, like on the hour, every hour. I somehow managed to like force myself through it. And at the end of that process, like literally the moment I finished that last chant and I sealed this jar and it was all done, fine, physically fine.
Wow.
And I put it out in the garden, which was, I was like, what do I do with this fucking jar at this point? And my friend was like, okay, well, you're going to want to put it obviously away from your house. And I said, but how am I going to know if it worked? I mean, should have been obvious at the point in time that I was no longer extremely unwell that it had worked. But I was like, how do I know? How do I know it's in here? I don't know. And my friend said, you're just going to know. You're just going to know. So you hear this a lot from other people in the occult when you're first like really learning serious magic. Oh, you're just going to know. It's such an annoying thing to hear. It's like, what do you mean I'm just going to know? Fuck you. Anyway, I put it in my front yard where at the time I had this gigantic catnip bush that was just growing all over the yard. I mean, catnip is a mint. It takes over everything. It grows like a weed. And this plant was very robust. And 3 days later, the entire plant had died. The whole thing was dead. And I was like, well,
wow,
that worked, I guess. But it was terrifying. It was a terrifying experience. And not because anything spooky supernatural was happening, like things weren't appearing to me or like being spooky, but the toll that it had taken on my physical body, which, if you're a science-minded person, you could say, well, that's probably just totally a coincidence. Like, bitch, you ate too much Taco Bell. Like, that's what's going on there.
Right.
Sure.
Like, not like, and it was horrifying. And I very nearly, because apparently this spirit had no ill intent. It wasn't trying to fuck me up. Apparently this was literally just a spirit that was ambiently around and that had noticed me and was like, oh, there's a witch. I'll just say hi, and I'll just say hi in a way that like starts ruining her life, because that's a good way to get attention.
Well, and the energy. I mean, even if they don't mean to, they're gonna suck some blood, right? If we
Yep.
want to go vampiric.
Yep, and that's why that was my very hard won lesson of here's how we have good spiritual boundaries and good spiritual cleanliness. But yeah, I very nearly threw in the towel at that point.
So you live in New Orleans?
Mhm.
Obviously. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I feel like I've been there a few times. I just feel like it's a haunted place to live.
Oh,
to-
yeah.
To be honest with you. I mean, um, you're saying like something could have happened in that place before you moved in or something like that. A lot of the places, like even driving by them, I would be like, gosh, this just gives me the heebie jeebies. Like it's a haunted, kind of creepy, dark place.
There's a lot of energy here, I think. I mean, the place that I live in, I'm not down like in the French Quarter or anything because your girl does not make that kind of psychic money. I'm not Patty
Right.
Negri yet, so I'm not, like I'm not raking it in. But I live in a house on the outskirts of Orleans Parish, so I'm still technically in New Orleans, but it's more the suburbs. My house was built in like 1963, I think. 1953. So it's not like old history haunty, but yeah, New Orleans is just a place with a lot of energy, spirits, and also just like, I mean,
Hurricane Katrina stuff.
I was about to say the legacy of Katrina.
Yeah, even if you don't live right in the quarter, I feel like with all that energy that even came through with that, is kind of wild. But Patty Negri, it's funny you mentioned her. I don't know if anybody else knows who that is, but that's the one they always get on Ghost Adventures.
Well, she's
Nick,
everywhere.
do you know who I'm talking about? It's the one lady they're always consulting on Ghost Adventures when they call in a psychic. That's who she's talking about.
I didn't know the name.
I don't know that she's extremely wealthy. I just assume that she is. I
would assume that she is too. Yeah. They're always calling her in. And I almost don't feel like she's very good on the episodes. It's like she walks in there and she just says some real vague generalities. And it's like, why don't you freaking hire me to do that? I can go in there and tell you more than she can. I'm not shitting on psychics by any means, but
no, I mean, I think celebrity psychics and celebrity occultists are their whole own thing, and I mean, God, I don't want my mouth to get me into trouble this evening, so let's not. But yeah, I mean, that's the other thing. I think it's not that there aren't legit people who become public figures and do things, but I think the nature of media also is that the legit stuff doesn't really sell. Like,
I know. Yeah,
there's magicians that have rabbits and hats, and then there's magicians.
Yeah,
and they both play the same game.
Yeah. Somebody said something about glittering generalities. One of my fave logical fallacies. Well, it's like they get in there and she's like, "Oh, my neck's burning." And, she'll like scratch it real quick. "Oh, look at this scratch on my neck." Ah, like, come on,
Patty,
did you have a mother? Did you have a mother? I think you had a mother. Yeah, stuff like that.
Somebody in your family was a smoker. It's like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, all of them, asshole. Narrow it down. Yeah, something like that. Right? Yes. I feel like someone, mother, father, grandmother, maybe Caucasian. Were they Caucasian? How'd you guess? I'm not, obviously, Celeste, I'm not making fun of you.
No, I don't feel that way at all. I think similar feelings. Yes.
I have a friend, actually. Her name's Whitney. You guys may know her, Whitney Fox. She's the real deal. She's a really cool lady. Yeah, I feel like people who actually have a talent for it, they're not on Ghost Adventures. They're not, so.
No, I agree. I mean, I think it's also possible that some of these people who become like big media figures, not to single out Patty, but folks in that wheelhouse, I think sometimes, maybe there is a legitimate skill and a talent and a gift there. But once you have to do it once a week on television with fucking, I don't even know who was on Ghost Adventures. Is that Zach Baggins? Whoever it is, like, you know, some like backwards baseball cap looking ass goatee guy being like, the ghost in
Dazzle
the
jeans.
house, you know.
Did you hear that? Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It probably creates a need to just like play the role and not worry about really like tapping in on a deeper level.
Well, I'll say there's one show that is like that I will say to this day I'm a huge fan and I love it so much, and I follow this girl on Instagram, is the Dead Files girl.
Oh,
Amy Allen.
Oh, I mentioned her before. I said you got to bring Amy Allen in instead.
Yeah. Oh, you did mention her? Dude, she gets me every time.
Yo,
She's
her facial
scary
expressions
accurate, dude.
Worth it, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, no, that's one, and I feel like the guy that she works with on the Dead Files. Nick, weren't you gonna talk to him or something, or
I was
you heard him on a podcast? Or
yeah, I was trying to, because he was a retired, I think, detective in New York, but I never got a response.
Well, I can only imagine you two talking to each other with your big New York accents, but yeah, no, she fascinates me. But so do you, Celeste. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of would like to have you on my show and ask you all kinds of witchcraftery questions.
Oh yeah, I'm down. I haven't done a podcast in forever, and then I feel like in this last week, everybody's like, "Do you want to be on a podcast?" I'm like,
yeah.
It's funny. Is another
down.
podcaster that I'm friends with literally hit me up and they're like, "Yo, I've been trying to get her on for a while."
Oh, I think I know the person you're talking about, maybe. But because I kind of went like stealth mode for the past like year, and I wasn't even really updating my Instagram. It was just like mostly strictly business stuff, not putting out a bunch of other content. I was real burned out from just the content mill and the constant demands of the internet. And then I went and decided to make a stupid TikTok, and here we are now.
Damn you, TikTok.
I know, every time.
As well, good timing.
Jen has a question.
Yeah, go for it, Jen.
Okay, so thank you very much, Heidi and Nick. So I have one comment, one question, and obviously I said I would dedicate Heidi in the chat, so I will do that. So Celeste, you were talking about how your partner is very analytical. So of course, Nick knows I love Kabbalah, so I'll just bring it up a little. This is kind of a boy magic, what you're talking about. It's very Hode. It's very, it's very hermetic. Like you're very like in the clear blue lightning, you could say. So that is like you're saying he is kind of a mystic. Yeah, he is. He's tuned into the numbers, but it's just boy magic because that's how he looks at it. Hard data. Women are more. They are less dense. I've said this many times on the show, but they're less dense than men. So you guys need a little more finesse, a little more care. That's why the rituals, that's why all the spiritual technologies. Men just kind of like need the know-how, and then we can kind of get there. Women kind of have to prepare themselves, but they can get there too. It's all, obviously I think of it as all like just consciousness. So you can get there if you want. It's just how you prepare yourself. But I thought that was really interesting because I think you're tapped into like, he is a mystic. And I know a lot of people like this. They would not consider themselves occultists or mystics, but they have like a very keen analytical eye and analytical knowledge. Like Lisa's very much like this. I'm not saying she's like a dude at all, but if you have like a science, that kind of brain, I think you are able to do it if you are open-minded. And then my question was, did Vampire the Masquerade, the White Wolf game, was that like really old-fashioned by the time you were kind of in the scene, or did you see it play kind of a role in how people, like the vampire balls and all of that? Like,
yeah.
I'm sort of familiar with that a little bit.
Yeah, no, I think White Wolf games, whether it's tabletop or LARPing, are gonna that's eternally popular. I'm in a VTM game right now. We haven't met for ages. We meet on Zoom, but I am a big fan of White Wolf. I love role playing, mostly tabletop. I'm not big on LARPing, surprisingly. I don't like people in real life, to keep me away from them. But yeah, no, I think that the White Wolf universe definitely did seep into elements of the group that I was in. The biggest thing that I can think of, I'm glad you asked this question actually, but the biggest way that I think it impacted some of the terminology from White Wolf games was creeping in to the way that the vampire moderators interacted with us. And the biggest way that that happened was the idea of ghouls. If anyone's played like VTM or a White Wolf game, the ghoul is a physically human, well, a mostly physically human character that is the servant or the, thrall of a vampire character. So in the role-playing game Vampire the Masquerade, your vampire character can give a human being a certain amount of blood, and that character becomes kind of like your little mortal slave, and you can go send them to do errands for you and do stuff during the day, pick up your vampire laundry, whatever it is you need them to do. In the cult that I was in, that idea started to really permeate. So the truly unhinged cuckoo bananas stuff that went on toward the end is that a bunch of us were told that we actually had vampire blood. We didn't remember getting the vampire blood because it was all happening while we were sleeping. But, the vampires who ran this cult were supposedly coming to some of us in the night and giving us their blood, and we were becoming ghouls. So in the world of the cult, I was a ghoul and had vampire blood and was told that that's why I was so sick. It turns out that I have a chronic illness. That's why I'm so sick. But I was told it was vampire blood. So there you go.
Well, that's really interesting, Celeste, because Nicholas DeVere, I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but yeah, and like I think his thing is the Temple of Blood and the Order of the Dragon, and like everyone knows he's like really sicko, and like that whole group is quite weird and very extreme. But they talk about like these very ideas that you're talking about. Like they think they are actually like immortal vampires, and they do feed people their blood unwittingly. So I just think that that's very fascinating that they're borrowing this kind of very extreme, Luciferian-ish. I'm not sure on their whole ideology, but yeah, very interesting.
Feeding them in their own blood.
Yeah, they give people their own blood unwittingly in food or in drinks, and they say it's to improve because they think they're like pure bloodline. Like that's Nicholas DeVere's like whole thing. He thinks he's like the great Aryan. I don't know. He thinks he's like like he just thinks he's like pure descendant of whatever. And so
that's interesting, Jen, because I've seen that in the plot line of a film recently called The Golden Child.
Oh my god!
Were you like Eddie Murphy?
Yeah, we're doing an occult and esoteric review of that on my show this week.
Oh my god, can I be on it?
Like the oatmeal or whatever that was.
That show. It's in the oatmeal. It's in the oatmeal. Hey, but I was gonna say it reminds me of Midnight Mass as well. Nick, I know you watched that one.
This all comes from the Great Brotherhood of the North. This is all very ancient magic. So all of that, all of these things. Yeah.
Let me be on that one.
You can come join us, Julia, for sure.
Send me the link. I love The Golden Child. I made Colby watch it the other day.
Oh, that's
you
awesome.
Just watched it too. That's good.
Yeah, I recently just watched it. I think the funniest part is when they go to like the to talk to the dragon lady, and he's like,
"Oh yeah,
this is good to keep the yang up," and he's like, "Nothing wrong with my yang." anyways, I did want to say I played Magic the Gathering when I was a youngster.
Great. It's a great game. I'm too stupid.
You like that one?
I'm not good at it because I can't math, but people who can math,
I was gonna say though, I started playing it when I was around like 16 or 17 or something like that, and I used to go to like the conventions or whatever and play against the tournaments and stuff. If somebody would have started a Magic the Gathering cult when I was that age, I would have joined it. I mean, I think that's...
You're all in on any cult, it sounds like.
I was going to say, you got to be careful. You're
so
broadcasting. You're like, I want to join a cult. Somebody sign me up.
Right?
I would do it. Just because I was young and impressionable, and also I'm working on a cult series right now. It's called Into the Cultiverse, and I want to join a cult just to see what it's all about, and then I'm going to report back the facts. But
I don't recommend that. They don't like you when you do that. They don't.
It's pretty
No
much like
cult
what
likes
I
that.
always say. Yeah.
Nobody will have me anyways, JJ, unless you start a cult. Maybe you'll
Well, the-
have me.
You'll
You
get
got
a
some money,
Robert
the Mormons
curse.
will take you. The Mormons will take
Oh,
you get some cash.
I don't want to pay.
I gotta go down to Brazil and go to the what's that one that we keep talking about, JJ, that we gotta cover one day? The Valley.
Oh
of the,
yeah, I don't remember the
like
Eye
that.
of Saturn. I don't know what it was called. What was that
Yeah,
one called?
Valley of the Dawn. Yeah, that is some wild
Eye of
one.
Dawn.
Yeah. Some shit.
Joey, you can sign a 1 billion-year contract with Scientology if you want to join a cult. It's only 1 billion
I-
years.
I think that's
It's
gonna.
only 1 billion years.
I mean, it's gonna be a no for me, dog. But the thing is, I would like to join like a cult temporarily,
Like a friendlier
like
cult than that.
like just to go to a couple crock pot lunches and then just take some notes down and just investigate a little bit and then just be out. But anyways, I think if you have enough passion behind something and you're involved with something enough, it would be easy to become involved in like a club or a group or what eventually ends up becoming a cult. Because I mean, I was stealing Magic the Gathering cards from Walmart and just like stuffing my bra with them and shoving them down my pants. I was obsessed
deep.
with it.
You're in deep.
I was in deep, man. So
Well, that is Magic. Magic the Gathering is there's definitely Kabbalistic.
Oh,
I think
shit.
like all the
Practice
occultists on the
magic.
panel. Yeah, there's
It's
something very.
fun for free now.
I mean, yeah, I agree, Jen. I think it gets a hold of your mind for sure because I became completely obsessed with it. I had the video game. I met people in
wow.
real life and played it. I mean, I did all of it. I mean, but the thing I grew out of it, but I feel like some of this stuff, like they set up these forums and stuff because a lot of people don't grow out of this.
Mhm.
They
It's
don't
to capture.
start
Yeah,
asking questions. Yeah.
yeah, it's to capture your attention. Like for me, I was like, I'm more like identify with some of what Celeste was saying because like I'm goth a little bit, like not full, but yeah, I was always adjacent to that subculture or whatever. I like magic. I was never into vampires, but I do like magic. So I was always interested in occult things. So it's always to draw your attention, like what consciousness are you going to capture with what story? So I've read all the Anne Rice books. I didn't mind them, but it's not going to be something that it wasn't the thing that captured me. So you were captured by Magic the Gathering. Heidi was obviously born a Mormon. JJ obviously became a Mormon. Nick was captured by the OTO. I'm not saying in a negative way.
Yeah.
Just everyone here kind of proves that the real American religion is actually a little weird, a little magical. And like a lot of like what you think
A lot of
the world
aliens.
is individualistic in a way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, I think
You're
that's
spot
very
on,
well
Jen.
said. Yeah. Very well
Absolutely.
said. Definitely.
Yeah. A lot of aliens. That is interesting. That does show up. What's up with that?
It's aliens all the way down at the end of the day.
It's aliens and women.
It's
There's always the
ultra terrestrial women all
Yeah.
the way down there.
Yeah.
I'll go probably about another like 10 minutes if anybody else has any more questions. I know I typed in the chat. I wanted to wrap it up, but like, not yet.
I know everyone went quiet. We were like,
I know, yeah, because they're probably like, oh,
I'm long-winded. I didn't want to get started on something I couldn't stop.
go ahead, Jen. You got another question?
Yeah, I'll ask Celeste a question. Is what are some of your most obviously you don't want to. I understand if you don't want to get into personal details of like your clients, but what are some of the more interesting cases that you would be willing to like share that you've done magically or for people?
oh yeah. So I think like, my clients, I get a lot of repeat clients, which I think is not always common in this industry, but I do have a really wonderful client base of people who kind of keep coming back either, and not like keep coming back like every week they're blowing me up, but keep coming back for insight or readings. Readings was the big bread and butter of my work for a long, long time. And that's really all I did. And I've only branched out into doing sort of bespoke spell work, bespoke ritual for people over the past 3-ish years. I didn't think that it was going to be as popular as it has been. But it turns out that a lot of people have a lot of magic that they want to do that they either don't know how to do or they're too lazy to do themselves. So that is now my job. As far as the most interesting, I get a lot of the kind of standard stuff that you would imagine. A lot of like, my ex left and I want him back. I get a lot of, I want a promotion at my job, or I need a new job and I don't know how to do that. But then I do get some sort of more unhinged requests, I guess. I've had a couple of people who needed one. Yeah. Well, not that many homicidal people, and I have a system for dealing with that. But I do have people who want to, either protect themselves from somebody, or they need to exact some form of vengeance, shall we say. And one such case, which I will talk about without naming names, but I had a client and a friend a couple of years ago who had been slighted by an individual and was upset about it. And so her whole thing was, she was very upset, very distraught. And she said, I want this person to be punished. And I said, okay, well, what kind of punishment are we talking about here? Like, let's have a conversation. And I always make sure that I do a divination first, because sometimes it's just not a good idea to go getting yourself involved in a situation like that. But she wanted him. He was I can't remember if he was like a YouTuber or like a Twitch streamer or something like that. But he was like a mildly famous in his like little niche kind of guy. And she said, I really want him to lose this celebrity boxing match that he's about to be a part of. There was some sort of YouTube live streamed pay-per-view influencer boxing match going on, and she really wanted this guy to lose. And I thought, well, that's fairly innocent. I don't give a damn about this guy. He seems like a piece of shit. Like, yeah, all right, let's do some magic for him to lose this boxing match. But then she kind of caveated and she said, but I also want him to get a little bit injured in the process. I was like, okay, fair enough. So do the ritual. And to be honest with you, like, my stuff usually does work. Sometimes it takes a little longer to work than I think it's going to. Like, timelines with magic are weird, but I have a pretty good track record of my stuff working. But
no, right in the middle of the story.
Are we back?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Oh man. All right. Either he was going to win this boxing match or he was not. It was going to work or it wasn't. And she was going to be watching live, my client, and it was like, oh fuck, if I screw the pooch on this one, it's going to be real bad for business. So anyway, I hear about it later, and she was like, well, he lost the match. I was like, oh, dope, that's awesome. Phew. She was like, yeah, and his bicep exploded, like the muscle in his bicep, I guess, like, I don't know, a tendon snapped or something, but he had like some crazy gnarly bicep injury. And so, yeah, that worked very successfully.
That's wild.
Frozen again.
God damn.
Oh man.
I had a question too.
Go shoot.
Oh,
wow.
You
You're
froze
back.
again, so I wasn't sure if you were there or
in
not.
and out. I don't know what's going on. I guess the spirits are like, that's enough of you, bitch. But go ahead if you have a question.
Well, I was just gonna say, do you ever get scared if like doing ritualism like this, like does anything negative come back on you or the person who requested it?
In my experience, neither. And I think that's because, like, so I'm not Wiccan, and only some schools of occultism really even believe in this idea of, like, rebound impact from a spell. In the Wiccan religion, it's like, okay, anything you're going to put out there, you get back on you 3 times. And that's just not a tenet that everybody believes in. I do believe in energy moving around. And while I don't really think that there's a sort of score sheet out there with some like supreme being like, oh, you did the bad thing, so now you're going to get the bad thing. I don't think it's quite, I mean, if it were like that, a lot of really bad people would be having really bad lives, and they don't. So, proof's in the pudding there a little bit.
I have to agree with you on that, because I've said several times, when you watch a movie, you always expect for the good guy to win in the end against evil. But in real life, it's not like that. It's usually the bad guy wins in the end. And that's reality. And so if it, I hate to say this, but it's like if it was like if you do something bad's going to happen to you, then I mean all the satanic pedophiles that run our country would not be freaking billionaires living, lavish lifestyles. It's like the bad guy wins in the end sometimes. I hate to say that, but that's what it seems like.
Well, and it's also like if you guys have seen the show The Good Place, where they try and like figure out what the moral like tally sheet would even look like and how you would calculate that. Like I do believe that there is some kind of like, I mean, I believe in God. I think that God is real. But I don't think that human morality and human action can be reduced to this sort of like easy checks and balances, yes, no, bad, good kind of thing. I do always do my own sort of soul searching and divination before I take a client on, before I decide like, am I going to do this work? But to be honest, I will get energetically drained. I'll say that and that's regardless of the kind of work that I'm doing, whether it's like kind of hexing and cursing or whether it's much more benevolent. Like if I have a full 3 days of spell work, it will drain the fuck out of me and I'll have to go to bed and sleep. But it doesn't, I mean, touch wood, you freaked me out now, but so far it hasn't like come and bit me in the ass yet. So I feel like the spirits are very present on this conversation and doing all sorts of things with the internet connection. So like, don't bite me in the ass, but so far so
could be Robert the Doll.
Yeah, I know. Robert's going to come get me. I've made
Son of a bitch follows me everywhere.
Made threats on Robert, and now it's all.
JJ, remind me never to meet up with you and go bowling. I just don't want that type of energy in my life.
Just be forewarned. Don't ever take a picture with Robert the Doll. He will curse you.
I have heard
that's a real thing.
I'm not gonna do it. I'm never gonna do it.
I saw him, but I don't think I took a picture. I think I was like, I'm gonna heed that warning because that's
You're far more wiser than I. Far more wiser than I.
I bet if you posted that picture, only got like 10 likes on it too, and now you're cursed forever.
I don't really have any social media outside my podcast, and this was probably 12 years ago. I'm not even sure what happened to the photo. I mean, it was.
You didn't even get a single like on it, JJ. Wow.
And for what?
I'm not certain it left the memory card. You know what I mean? Like I'm not certain it ever left the actual memory card of the camera.
Oh my god!
You know what I mean?
That's how seriously Robert the Doll takes his privacy. He's like,
he's not happy about it. He's not happy. You don't have to print it. Apparently, you just have to have it on, on a memory card. Apparently, rotting away in the back of a closet somewhere. I'm sure.
Crazy.
Hey, quick question. Something I heard that might be total bullshit. If you cut your hair on a full moon or something, like when are you're only supposed to cut your hair on certain days. I have a hair appointment coming up. This is pertinent information.
Waning, Julia, waning. Always on a waning.
Is one coming up? Because I have a hair appointment.
I don't know what the moon is doing right now. I think it is waning currently, actually.
Oh, thank God. I need a good haircut.
Yeah, there you go. You're safe.
It's been years since I've gotten a good haircut. And I feel like it's always because I get it cut at the wrong time. Somebody told me this last time. I said, every time I go, I get a shitty fucking haircut. And they said, it's because you're only supposed to cut your hair on the waning moon. I couldn't remember which one it was, but I just, if there's anything to that, I think I want to do it next time.
Yeah, that's old astrology.
Definitely let us know how that goes.
Just tell them Robert the Doll sent you.
Waning moon, you never cut your hair on a dark moon. And usually what you do is you collect the hair and then you burn it. If you want to be really old school, you collect the hair after they sweep it up. You don't let them take it and you burn it yourself.
Ooh, see what happened was
Nick
cut his hair on a dark moon and now it won't never grow back. So learn from him.
Going for the barber shave and
yeah, that's what's up. Well, this
on
was
the
fun,
dark
you guys.
moon.
Yeah, this was so great. Thanks for letting me be a reconnect with you all. I enjoyed it.
I loved it. Thank you for answering all our questions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, before we wrap it up, I'll let everybody plug themselves again. Heidi, let everybody know what is up with your show, please.
I am Heidi Love of the Unfiltered Rise. I'm everywhere podcasts are served. I do have my own website, unfilteredrisepodcast.com. Come check me out. I'd love to see you. And thank you, everyone, for the chat. Thank you, Celeste.
Yeah. And JJ Vance.
JJ Vance, host of Operation GCD, not the vice president when it comes back on the screen. Celeste, great to meet you. It was a great conversation. I will have to get your contact information from Nick to talk Robert the Dog curses and whatnot. But thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. And Jen, Heidi, Julia, always great. Nick, appreciate the invite as always.
Awesome. Thank you very much, sir. And then we'll go with Cosmic Peach. Julia, what is up?
Yeah, I'm everywhere and nowhere. I'm a ghost of podcasting. But if you want to work with me, the way you can do that is go to my Instagram page, cosmic.peach.podcast. I have my link tree there. Send me an email if you want to be on my show or have me on your show. That's the best way to contact me. Thanks again, Nick, for having me on. Celeste, you're lovely. I enjoyed our conversation and I learned a lot. Thanks.
Awesome. That's great. That's great. And Jin the Ninja, please make sure you plug yourselves since you weren't here at the beginning.
Thank you so much, Nick. Thank you, Heidi. Thank you, JJ. Thank you, Julia. And Celeste, you were a great guest. I just will say thank you. And awesome. Great show. As we've all done lately, because I've obviously podcasted with all of you frequently in the last few months, so thank you. And I just did an episode with Heidi, and tomorrow I'm on with JJ and Nick and Julia, and we're doing Wednesday, excuse me, Wednesday, the Golden Child. Yes, I remember Wednesday, and I won't be late. So I just dropped
You might be early.
I'll be early. And I just dropped a 3-part series on my show on Ralph Bakshi. So we did Fire and Ice, American Pop, and Wizards. So I did the Kabbalah.
Nice.
So I went really, if you're into schizo Kabbalah, looking at the colors, archetypes, talking about like maybe a little Talima, a little, like obviously I got into Kenneth Grant because it's impossible to discuss those films without it. So that just dropped on my feed. I have lots of episodes coming out. I just dropped the episode I did with JJ on Big Trouble in Little China, which is, I think it was a great episode. So, that just dropped on my feed. So you can check me out, Threshold Saints, Twitter at Wukong Reborn, IG at Threshold Saints, and the Gray Lodge. So one of my spaces, we actually have a YouTube channel now. I'm not running it. I have nothing to do with it. But one of the boys started us a YouTube channel so we can put our lives. We do these for the Friday night Gnostic Mass. So we have been doing speculative Gnosticism. So yeah. So if you're interested, check it out. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thank you.
And finally, Celeste. Yes.
Yeah. Let me get this out quick. My camera keeps freezing. My internet's over it. So yeah, you can find me. I have a website, celestemott.com. That's how you can book with me if you want to partake in my services. But I'm also on Instagram at Celeste Mott and TikTok at Celeste Moth with an H. Thank you so much, by the way. I've got away from myself there. Thanks for letting me be on. This was a blast. I had a really good time.
Same.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I had a blast too. Thank you, everybody who joined. I really had a good time tonight, and thank you, everybody in the chat. That's what's up. There was a bunch of you in there, I guess, from old channels too. I really appreciate the comments and the questions and stuff in there. And until the next one, everybody else be well. Later.
Bye.